Hey guys, tonight we begin our exploration of the life of a Roman gladiator. This examination will reveal the details surrounding their existence, the hardships endured, and the environment in which they lived. If you enjoy this type of content, consider subscribing to the channel. Let us know in the comments where and at what time you are listening. Morning arrives in ancient Rome. It is several days in the year 100 AD. The sun has not yet risen. It remains dark. A gladiator awakens in a training facility known as a ludus. The air is cool and damp. The walls of the ludus are often made from stone. They are thick and unyielding. This structure lacks the comforts of a private home. This gladiator shares the space with others. The room is large. It holds many men. They all sleep on simple mats. These mats are filled with straw. They are placed on the hard, cold stone floor. The mats provide little comfort. As dawn approaches, one hears the sounds of the city. The faint clanging of metal resonates. Iron tools strike nearby. The rhythmic noise serves as a morning alarm for the gladiators. This sound symbolizes the beginning of a long day. The first task is waking up early. The day begins before the sun fully lights the sky. Many Roman gladiators choose a life of violence and fame. Others are forced into it. Historians have found that some were prisoners, while others were debtors. As awareness increases, this gladiator slowly rolls out of bed. The cold air brushes against the skin. The body feels weary and stiff from sleep. There is little time to rest. His muscles ache from the previous day's training. Preparation for combat consumes his life. After rising, it is often customary to stretch. Stretching helps shake off exhaustion. It eases the muscles. Once stiff joints begin to move. The warrior's body is a vital tool. Care must be taken to maintain it. From his mat, the gladiator looks around. He sees his fellow combatants stirring. They are preparing for morning exercises. The sight is familiar. Each competitor has their own fears and ambitions. Some dream of glory in the arena. Others only wish for survival. Eventually, the gladiator leaves the mat. The stone floor feels harsh against bare feet. There is no heating in the ludus. Chilly air fills the space. The body craves warmth. However, no fire crackles nearby. The gladiators wear simple tunics. These tunics are often made from wool. The fabric is coarse and unrefined. It is not tailored for comfort. Each gladiator puts on their tunic. The clothing does little to shield against the morning chill. Yet, the discomfort is a small part of their routine. Before any food is consumed, the training begins. The gladiators will partake in a rigorous regimen. The head trainer, known as a Lannister, encourages them. The Lannister is a stern figure. He drills the men relentlessly. When practicing begins, one feels the adrenaline rushing through the body. Slowly, the warriors assemble. They prepare weapons for the day. These weapons are often wooden replicas. They help prevent injury during training. Gladiators practice fighting techniques. They focus on agility and speed. According to records from ancient historians, gladiators trained hard. They practiced several hours every day. Their training was exhausting. Rigorous exercises built strength and stamina. The mind must remain focused. During training, food is scarce. Breakfast consists of a simple meal. Some gladiators may receive a bowl of porridge. The porridge is made from barley. It is cooked in water. This meal is bland. There are no spices to enhance it. Sometimes, they share fruit, such as figs. Figs are sweet yet modest in quantity. A few gladiators scavenge for additional food. They search for anything that falls from tables. A small amount of bread may also be available. This is often stale. Water is a vital necessity. It is essential for a gladiator's endurance. The water is drawn from the nearby aqueduct. It is kept in earthenware jugs. Many men crowd around to fill their cups. One must drink quickly. There is little time to spare before work. The environment itself is challenging. The latency of each gladiator's environment is steeped in potential danger. Accidents often occur. Sparring partners can strike with little notice. The physicality of it all can be brutal. Ancient Roman sources detail the lives of gladiators. They highlight the extreme conditions faced daily. Hygiene practices during this time were limited. Many gladiators lacked access to proper bathing facilities. At times, they bathe in a nearby river. However, the water is often cold. The bathing area can be crowded. Many share the water with others. Diseases can spread easily in such conditions. Despite the lack of hygiene, the gladiators must look strong. Public image is vital. One must command respect inside the arena. They rely on their physical presence to deter opponents. Thus, many gladiators endure discomfort to create that image. As the training continues, sweat begins to bead on foreheads. The body is pushed to its limits. Some gladiators will exceed their energies. The Lannister's voice rises above the sounds of training. Encouragement and admonition mix together. The air grows warmer as the sun begins to rise. Light spills into the ludus. The day is beginning. The brightness creates a stark contrast to their dim surroundings. Gladiators sweat and breathe heavily. They feel a mix of exhaustion and determination. While training persists, the day continues to unfold outside. The sounds of the city awaken. Merchants call to potential customers. The sense of distant cooking meats waft through the air. The gladiators feel the pull of hunger grow within them. Yet fight practice does not cease. It demands their focus. The nature of their profession leaves little room for distraction. Such is life in the ludus. To long for comfort would be unwise. And now, slowly, one begins to rise from the mat, preparing for what comes next. As one rises from the mat, the day pushes forward with an inevitable rhythm. The surroundings are still dim, yet the light grows stronger. The body is stiff from sleep, transitioning into the responsibilities of the day ahead. Each gladiator begins to make their way towards the area designated for morning training exercises. Morning routines vary little from day to day. Movement is deliberate, guided by the wisdom of experience. They dress in their basic tunics, made of rough wool. Each garment is worn from continuous use. The air carries the lingering scent of humidity, mixed with leather and sweat from the previous day's efforts. As they tie their belts, a sense of shared purpose hangs in the air. While some exchange glances of encouragement, others look down, lost in their thoughts. Their minds predict the wearisome manual labor that lies ahead. They know that the day demands focus on discipline and fierce dedication to the craft of combat. With clothing secured, the methodical procession heads towards the training yard. Sand crunches beneath their feet. Each step brings them closer to their fate, in both training and potential battle. The Lannister, the master trainer, stands ready to oversee the day's practice. He carries a heavy air of authority, his shouts echoing throughout the area, demanding respect and attention. Upon arriving at the training yard, a familiar scene unfolds. Gladiators gather in small groups. They form into pairs to practice fighting techniques and strategies. Weapons are afoot. Wooden swords are picked up, mimicking the heft of their steel counterparts. Others pick up shields, learning the balance and weight essential for effective combat. The sounds of clashing wood fill the air. This practice acts as both a test of skills and a demonstration of endurance. The sun has risen higher now, luminously fading the night shadows away. Sweat begins to form, glistening on foreheads, testament to the physical exertion required for each technique they master. A collective effort brings forth an unspoken bond between them. Here are warriors refining their artistry, attempting to survive within their brutal world. The first strikes resonate with the clang of wood against wood. Each participant learns the rhythm of the battle. The Lannister moves among them, observing closely, offering corrections and encouragement. Accidents can occur. Sparring can turn aggressive, particularly when fatigue sets in. Nevertheless, their training is so vital that the risk is considered part of the job. As practice intensifies, a few gladiators take a moment to catch their breath against sun-warmed stones. They lean against the walls of the ludus, drinking in a small measure of precious water before returning to the fray. These moments, however brief, become a sanctuary. They exchange fleeting words, good luck, advice for the next round, reminders to focus. As time ebbs onward, the shadows of the day lengthen. The voices of the city resonate in the background. The low rumbling of market chatter fills the air. Scented spices and cupped fruits tempt from far away. Shopping merchants peddle their wares. Gladiators, however, remain solely focused on the task at hand. Next, the midday sun casts shadows directly beneath their feet. The tumor of thirst weighs heavily. But training remains unyielding. The Lannister increases the rigor. Each gladiator understands that the expectation is to push harder, to evolve from mere survival into combat mastery. At long last, the intensity mellows as they reach the end of the training session. Every gladiator moves toward the shared trough where water awaits. They line up one by one, cupping eager hands to fill with the cooling liquid. The water is shallow, perhaps merely a chore, but a comforting necessity. With the thirst quenched, the next step involves preparing a sparse meal. In a dusty corner of the ludus, a fire burns low, just enough to heat their rations. The simple fare consists of coarse bread, baked with minimal seasoning. It absorbs flavor rather than delivers it. The undertones of grain persist, longing for additional provisions. Occasionally, offcuts of meat appear, remnants from meals made for the wealthy of Rome, but such luxuries are rare. It is a familiar sight. Gladiators tear off chunks of bread, sharing bites and conversation. They recount stories of their victories, battles fought for freedom, however fleeting. They draw from a deep well of camaraderie, weathered through trauma endured in the arena. Empathy flows between them, if only temporarily dissipating the judgments cast by society. The hour drifts. Time wanders as discussions return to the relentless training methods. Since early morning, gladiators have poured their energy into practice. They share wisdom while consuming their meager meal. The biscuits are tough, compliments of the bread-making pride of the local baker. Yet the food nourishes them, fueling their bodies for further exertion. They tear the bread with rough hands, the sound crisp in the quietness of the courtyard. The atmosphere is one of uniformity. Routine defines each segment of their existence. Every day unfolds much like the previous. The sheer repetition becomes a strange sort of comfort, despite the circumstances of being enslaved. Though they face danger each and every time they enter the arena, these moments spent together provide a binding force. They momentarily forget the chains. Once their meal concludes, they rise and steady themselves against the wall. The shadows have shifted, suggesting the early afternoon. Heavy sunlight weighs down as they adjust their physical forms for the next phase, the rituals of combat preparation. As the sun hangs high in the blue expanse of the sky, thoughts begin to turn toward their attire for the arena. Gladiators prepare mentally for what could lie ahead. They depart from the collective energy of the ludus, moving to the space where rows of armor and weapons await them. In the dressing area, they peruse an array of armor. The air thickens with the smell of worn leather. Each gladiator reaches for an item, choosing carefully what they feel best suits their abilities. They assess the intricacies of their helmets, their leg protections. The visuological aesthetic becomes deeply personal at this point. Straps and buckles offer a simple challenge, but inelegant movements can cause great embarrassment. How one dresses becomes a part of the performance, preparing not only for battle but also for public display. Confidence hinges on appearance. They touch the cool metal of armor, leading to a slight shiver all the way down their spine. With armor in place, a transformation occurs. The transition from laborer to warrior bears significance. They are no longer merely gladiators, they turn into avatars of entertainment. Layer upon layer solidifies their identities not just as fighters but as esteemed figures within the tumultuous world of the amphitheater. The movements become more practiced, they wield their swords with a newfound energy. Every step, every flex of their muscle is a part of protocol. Soon, they regroup for a final review, a moment before competition greets them. As the final adjustments are made, weight shifts upon fine lines of anticipation. They look across at their comrades, at the familiar faces no longer obscured by mere tunics. They see warriors, ready for whatever awaits. The excitement of performance draws near, anticipation palpable in the air. They stretch as if to prepare for a great leap into a world beyond the one they know. The Lannister steps forward. He surveys them, standing firmly at the head of the group. His presence commands the attention of all gathered behind him. His words are few but decisive. They prepare to step into the fray once again. His voice cuts the air, issuing commands that are met with immediate compliance. And so, another cycle of existence continues to form. The gladiators equip themselves in the knowledge that they walk the line between glory and the inevitable peril of battle. The day, like many before, teeters on a precipice of uncertainty. Therefore, they know patience remains paramount. For now, the mundanity of life continues as they wait for the inevitable call to arms. As afternoon wanes away, the encroaching darkness of their future lingers as a weight. Thus, preparing for the most arduous moments in their lives becomes a daily hallmark of existence. As each gladiator moves onward to their respective areas of practice, they do so knowing a blend of fate lingers. And now, with that understanding, we shall turn our attention to another critical aspect of daily life for gladiators. The nature of their competitions, the bloodshed on the sands, enkindles tales that have persisted through the ages. Here, we delve into the stories that define the legacy and peril of what it meant to truly be a gladiator in ancient Rome. The atmosphere shifts as the sun rises higher. The first rays warm the earthen floor of the ludus. The day begins in earnest. Focus returns to the routine that shapes their lives. Each gladiator engages in stretches, their limbs loosening in preparation for the rigors ahead. The sounds of their practice ring hollow against the stone walls. There is an urgency in the air. It is not merely a matter of physical training. Today will hold meaning that extends far beyond routine. It is the day of a scheduled match, a moment that could lead to fleeting glory or grievous injury. As they move in pairs, there exists a silent understanding. The competition is both a test of skill and survival. The bouts held within the arena pulsate with visceral energy. It is a space where sweat intermingles with blood and dust. The memory of victories and defeats lingers. They visualize the grandeur of the games, the roar of the crowd, the thrill of combat. But also, the very real, imminent danger. Training sessions emphasize coordination. The Lannister calls out commands in a clipped tone, ensuring movements remain sharp. As hours pass, the fatigue begins to creep in. Muscles ache and limbs groan against the strain of relentless practice. Yet, yielding is not an option. for any failure in form could be a fatal misstep in the arena. They endure the pain, preparing to showcase their skill to a transfixed audience. The sounds of the ludus are punctuated by heavy footsteps appearing at the entrance. An unfamiliar figure steps into view, one of the local patricians, an investor in the games. This marks an unwelcome intrusion. The Lannisters' mood darkens, sensing another scrutiny of their progress. Gladiators exchange fleeting glances, aware of the high stakes. Their worth is often dictated by the approval of the elite. They adjust their stances, resolve fortifying. Time drags, elongating to encompass the slowing rhythm of movement. The sun now sits high overhead, pouring heat into the stone courtyard. Each drop of sweat mixes with the dust underfoot. The gladiators work tirelessly, their breath quickening as the day wears on. Shared determination fills the space. Each fighter seeks to impress. As practice draws to a close, the Lannister signals an end. His gravelly voice commands attention. He walks among them, inspecting individual performances. He notes the strengths and weaknesses with cold precision. Praise is rare, reserved only for those who truly stand out. Many will leave the training yard, uncertainty clinging to them. After a moment, the Lannister addresses the group, outlining the schedule for the day. It is not only practice but a combination that leads to an impending exhibition in the arena. The mention of a public match fills some with dread. Exposure to the crowds is both a coveted opportunity and a terrifying burden. They will face not only competing gladiators but the spectators who expect valor amidst bloodshed. While the atmosphere shifts, the gladiators drink water sparingly. Fresh water is a precious resource, and even in moments of exhaustion, they must ration. A trough, situated in the corner of the courtyard, serves as the only source of hydration. Dogs trot about, scavenging scraps from the day's training. The air thickens, weighed down by anticipation and lingering fatigue. As the day moves toward midday, the rhythm of the ludus slows. It becomes a waiting game. The gladiators retreat to their cells, seeking rest before the inevitable call to action. They sit together, sharing whispered stories as they occupy the small spaces. Conversations drift between bravado and fears, a tapestry of emotions woven tightly. The creaking of tired bodies fills the room as they lean against the cool stone walls. The frequent shuffling and rustling comprise their efforts to find comfort within discomfort. Food becomes a topic of discussion, meals are bland and repetitive. Boiled grains and coarse bread hold no allure. There exists no indulgence, only sustenance to maintain strength for battle. Occasionally, a few privileged gladiators may secure a portion of meat, remnants from wealthy patrons' feasts. But for the majority, the diet remains unsatisfying and unvaried. They rely on sheer will to push through these mundane sustenance challenges. This agony persists. They lean into camaraderie, fortified by shared hardship. As midday approaches, anticipation of the arena tugs at their resolve. Shortly, they will prepare their armor and rehearse. It is a grim reality. The perspectives of fear and bravery compete in silent battles. Conflicted thoughts ripple through them like a shared current. Now, a distinct noise signals the forthcoming preparations. The Lannister strides back, bringing urgency. It is time to don armor and adorn the identities of gladiators. The call compels them to rise. A gentle noise accompanies the shuffling of feet as they gather for their final preparations. They emerge from their confines. The corridor directs them toward the dressing area where their equipment awaits. Swords rest against the wall, polished and ready for use. They assume positions to access their armor, a ritual that bears weight beyond that of mere clothing. Each gladiator dresses with intent. They slide on their leather coverings, strapping on protective gear over had-trained bodies. The thrum of adrenaline courses through them, an exhilarating fear before engagement. the distinct smell of leather infused with sweat begins to envelop the space. With every movement, they transform from captives to warriors. The weight of their armor signifies duty and obligation. Each piece, meticulously maintained, speaks to the knowledge that survival hinges on not only skill but also appearance and reputation. They wear their identities like badges of honor. Finally, they stand adorned in various styles of armor, a reflection of individual training and prestige. Some display unique helmets and ornate designs, while others bear simpler outfits. Yet they share a singular purpose: they are as much entertainers as they are participants in a deadly game of survival. As preparations reach completion, they gather as one unit, their eyes meeting with solemnity. They exchange reaffirming nods, a ritualistic gesture to remind one another of the stakes at hand. The consequences of defeat loom heavy. They understand what lies ahead is not merely a match, but a test of life and death enacted by the will of the crowd. With a final glance amongst them, they proceed toward the amphitheater. The arena, a monumental structure, resonates with the whispers of past glories and tragedies. The shadows of its archways provide a moment of respite from the sun's weight. Future contests echo, the arena's significance stretching far beyond their immediate struggles. Thus, they walk onward, each step measured and deliberate. The sound of their footsteps melds into a chorus of promise and anxiety. The open air greets them, carrying with it the scent of earth, sweat, and anticipation. As they approach the threshold of the Grand Colosseum, an overwhelming sense of purpose unfurls within. They step into view of the roaring crowds, aware of their desires. No longer just gladiators, they become characters in a vast narrative where their fates twist around the expectations of thousands. And so, the unforgiving routine continues. Prepared under watchful eyes, they stand ready to fight. The machinations of fortune and fate await while the crowd cheers, whose roars compress upon them like a vice. This moment is a prelude to what's next, the clash of steel, the paradox of spectacle and suffering. Ahead lies the pulse of the arena. It beats with the heart of Rome itself. The echoes of life against death resound in the very stones beneath their feet. Now, we shall shift our focus to another critical aspect of their existence, the nature of the competitions they face, the brutal realities of combat, and the unfolding stories of valor and sacrifice that define the legacy of the gladiator. The time has come for these gladiators to enter the arena. They anticipate the momentous sounds that will soon engulf them. Their training and relentless preparation etch deeply into their minds. Each gladiator has faced numerous fights in their lifetimes. They have endured the pain and triumph that comes with survival. Now, they must channel these experiences into the brutal reality of combat. As they take their positions, the surroundings grow more vivid. The sun casts shadows that stretch across the sandy arena floor. The crowds, perhaps numbering in the thousands, generate an ever-growing cacophony. Their voices echo with excitement, yearning for the spectacle of bloodshed. It is an exhilarating but chilling reaction to their imminent conflict. These emotions fuel the gladiators with a sense of purpose. However, an undercurrent of fear runs deep within as well. The arena itself dates back to its grand inauguration in 80 AD, an architectural wonder of the Roman Empire. It stands as a testament to their civilization's engineering abilities, with its complex tiered structure allowing for extensive seating. Records indicate that seating capacity was approximately 50,000 spectators. The Colosseum, as it is commonly known, serves not just as a battleground but as a vital cultural hub for the Roman populace. As the first clashes commence, the sounds of metal striking metal emerge. The roars of combat echo in unison with the crowd's delight. The atmosphere is electrifying. Gladiators engage in combat with swords, spears, and other weaponry, each movement calculated, each strike purposeful. The training regimen they have followed is put to the ultimate test in this combative display. Gladiators face different styles of combat. There are retarii, who use nets and tridents, and mirmillo, who don heavy armor and large shields. Each fighter must adapt to their opponent's strategies. The choreography of battle requires not only strength but also quick decision-making and adaptability. Their extensive preparation fosters endurance, yet numerous injuries shadow their performance. The brutality of combat is unforgiving. Many glances exchanged among the gladiators signify unspoken words, a recognition of the dangers involved. According to historical records, injuries sustained during battles were common, resulting in broken bones, deep lacerations, and potential fatalities. The risk is an imminent part of their existence. It is reported that less than a quarter of gladiators survived long enough to earn their freedom or retire honorably. No winnings are guaranteed. Many enter with the hope of gaining not only survival but also fame. The audience's approval shapes their paths. Medals and monetary awards might bless the skilled fighters, at least temporarily. Each contest is thus a gamble for them, a coin toss between life and death, glory and disgrace. During these battles, combatants are forced to rely on each other for support. This bond forged through shared adversity can create alliances among these warriors. Such alliances may offer protection in battle scenarios. Yet rivalries often surface, brought forth through competition and stark differences in fighting capabilities. A gladiator's reputation can shift with the wind, depending on their performance in the arena on any given day. As they strive against one another, the emotional landscape transforms. Though their skills may be equal or varied, the stakes remain the same. Losing a battle can mean loss of life or, at the very least, severe injury. In the minds of the gladiators, the arena is no mere stage, it represents a pecking order, a chance to elevate one's status, or to descend into obscurity. The overwhelming din of the audience becomes all-consuming. The cheers and jeers echo from the towering walls of the Colosseum. The gladiators' hearts beat in sync with these sounds, their adrenaline surging. With their backs against the wall amid the epic spectacle, they draw upon a deep well of courage. The purpose of this experience, beyond mere survival, is tied to destiny, their own and that of their spectators. Yet, the competition remains a double-edged sword. As audience members cheer for one warrior's victory, they simultaneously affirm the brutal punishment that awaits the vanquished. Historical documentation reveals that in cases of poor performance, defeated gladiators faced harsher repercussions. Some faced execution while others were compelled to fight again under more dreadful conditions. The Roman world views training and combat as a rite of passage into a realm of notoriety, a force that drives gladiators to embrace the peril of the arena despite their thoughts of vengeance and escape. Throughout this segment of performance, the challenges persist. Gladiators experience the weariness and exposure to the elements, as the sun beats down relentlessly on each combatant. The slightest misjudgment could cause catastrophic consequences, resulting in severe injuries. Dust from the sand swirls around them with every movement, inhaled but not acknowledged in the heat of battle. The combination of physical exertion, emotional stress, and audience pressure compounds with each fight. In their minds, a singular reality emerges: they must win. Following the footsteps from the training grounds to the arena, they feel the burden of expectations. Hopes rest not only on their shoulders but also on their fellow combatants. As the day's events unfold, the hours tick by. The combat becomes a symphony of violence, a brutal spectacle dissected frame by frame. Each second reveals the magnitude of the fight. Gladiators duel for their lives while reflecting on their histories, losses, and dreams yet to be fulfilled. They are living embodiments of duality, entertainers and warriors. Now, we shall examine the dynamics of their relationships. The bonds shared and the rivalries forged in this constant routine offer insight into their daily lives. It shapes their camaraderie, the unfurling tapestry of shared experience, and how these connections defy their roles as mere fighters in a deadly arena. Their collective narratives weave into the fabric of their struggles and triumphs, defining the unseen reasons behind the choice to fight. As the competition unfolds, alliances and shared destinies emerge. These aspects form a reflective lens through which to view the intricate relationships among gladiators. Now, let us delve deeper into the connections that define gladiatorial life. We shall explore the layers of friendship and rivalry against the backdrop of impending conflict, and the enduring bonds that persist through shared suffering. Relationships among gladiators are a complex interplay of necessity and shared tribulations. These bonds vary, often reflecting the highly stratified nature of their existence. An unspoken understanding develops between them, born from the harsh realities of their lives. Each morning, as they awaken in the confines of the ludus, they bear not only their own struggles but also the weight of their companions' fates. The camaraderie, forged in the midst of adversity, provides a cushion for their daily challenges. The clang of wooden swords during training sessions often carries with it the rhythmic pulse of competition. These sounds resonate deeply, as they are reminders of what lies ahead. Gladiators sparring with each other develop not only their combat skills but also a deeper sense of loyalty. They rely on one another for support, both physical and emotional. The distinct aromas of sweat mingle in the air while laughter, however fleeting, breaks through the somber tones of their lives. Within the training grounds, friendships form and rivalries arise from the intersection of differing fighting styles and personalities. A reticent gladiator may find an outspoken partner, and together they balance each other in their routines. These relationships are a reflection of their struggle, a means to cope with the impending challenges that await. It is during these moments that they may share in the small victories of training, honing techniques that could make a difference in the arena. Yet, the relationships among gladiators are not without tension. Training mates may become bitter rivals when they face off in the arena, where a win could signify freedom or false hope for a better life outside the ludus. The personal stakes are high. An array of emotions depletes their spirits: fear, jealousy, and sometimes begrudging respect for a worthy opponent. Additionally, the varying levels of expertise and fame lead to a hierarchy within the ludus. More experienced gladiators enjoy privileges that less experienced counterparts can only aspire to. This hierarchical structure often manifests in unspoken favoritism from trainers and lanistae. The recognition comes with its own burdens. The weight of expectation looms larger on the experienced fighters. The survival of a less skilled gladiator in their fight could rest on the training imparted by their more seasoned peers, leading to unintentional tension. The respect among ST gladiators often lies in this shared understanding of life on the razor's edge. They are fully aware of the circumstances that come with fighting for public spectacle. The presence of a seasoned veteran in a match often draws attention not only from the audience but also from competitors. A public loss can taint one's reputation, influencing future matches by altering perceptions of skill. These relationships can also extend beyond mere companionship. The gladiators engage in storytelling sessions in the quieter moments of the day. They exchange accounts of past encounters, from exhilarating victories to gut-wrenching defeats. Each tale serves as both counsel and warning. As they recount their narratives, the room fills with an air of camaraderie, punctuated by moments of silence honoring fallen fighters. This shared history creates a palpable bond, allowing them to reflect on their mortality and the choices they have made. During these exchanges, one can see the vulnerabilities of gladiators emerge, exposing latent hopes and dreams that lie beneath the surface. Outside of the arena, amidst their fatigue, they are more than just gladiators. They are dreamers, clinging to the possibility of freedom. The lingering scent of the food brought back from training stirs the thoughts of a future beyond the looming specter of battle. As each gladiator prepares for the upcoming match, they look upon their peers with tempered anticipation. The adrenaline from prior competition settles into a common understanding: they are athletes on the brink of performance. Each gladiator embodies a story that may resonate widely or remain locked behind their armor. The approach to the day's fights is characterized by the ritual of dressing for combat. Their attire is more than just garments, it is an embodiment of identity, a shield against the harsh realities awaiting them. Gladiators adorn themselves with their specific sets of armor, which vary according to their roles and fighting styles. The distinctiveness of one's battle gear becomes part of their brand. Those with elaborate helmets or intricate armor are easily recognizable. Gladiators invest time in their appearance, a necessary ritual that grants a semblance of control over their identity where minimal agency exists. As they dress, they sense the texture of each material, the heft of metal and the rough edges of leather press against their skin, a stark reminder of what is to come. Numerous pairs of hands go to work adjusting each piece, finding comfort, an ironic task given the nature of their circumstances. The clinking of metal against metal fills the air as they surround themselves in their unique protective gear. Each helmet fits differently, shaping how they see the world they will soon enter, the restaurant of combat and chaos. They take time to focus, allowing their thoughts to concentrate on what lies ahead. This moment of preparation is a critical transition. It is during this pause that gladiators mentally prepare for the onslaught they know awaits them in the arena. Each piece of armor fastened tight becomes a talisman against fear and uncertainty. They endure, knowing they must ready their bodies for the physical exertion that is yet to unfold. After all preparations are complete, they gather in a moment of unspoken unity. Esoteric phrases are exchanged, an invocation for strength and protection. The motivations of their lives as gladiators roam through the air like ephemeral whispers. These men and women stand together, perhaps as reluctant allies, soon to face the sharp edges of mortal combat. Now, as they step into the sunlight that pours into the arena, they are acutely aware of the multitude of spectators, their cheers mingling with distinct apprehension. The atmosphere thickens with anticipation. For many, the sight of the spectators ignites a myriad of emotions, anxieties, hopes, desires, and more than likely, fears. The moments just before a match can feel surreal, almost dreamlike. As they march forward, each gladiator feels their heart resonate in time with the unyielding rhythms of the crowd's chant. They may steal glances at the stands, where the faces of the excited masses blur together. The vastness of their world, once limited to the ludus, has transformed into an expansive stage. Onlookers await a show, so fundamentally detached from the gravity of their plight. Though fueled by adrenaline, gladiators remain ever aware of the delicate line between their existence and mortality. Alas, each is not merely a participant shaped by destiny, they are the architects of their fate. The sacrifices made, both personally and within the bonds of companionship, breathe life into their relentless pursuit of honor. As the day unfolds, the narratives of shared experiences, forged friendships, and rivalry swirl into a vibrant tapestry, one illuminated by the weight of their struggles and the hope for liberation that fuels their desire to fight. Thus concludes a day saturated with unyielding expectations and profound connections. Their world remains unchanging as they retreat to focus on the next day, a cycle both demanding and familiar. Shadows of memories linger in the distance, calling for once more to fight. Next, let us delve into the life of one of history's most noted gladiators, a figure who transcended their role, a man of rebellion and hope against the backdrop of a grim existence. The struggles of Spartacus offer a lens through which to examine the lives of gladiators as more than mere entertainers but as symbols of resilience and resistance against oppression. Spartacus was born around 111 BCE in Thrace, a region located in southeastern Europe. Historical records suggest he was the son of a nobleman and was likely raised in a household that espoused the values of strength and discipline. As a young man, Spartacus served in the military, cultivating skills that would later prove significant in his life as a gladiator. At some point, Spartacus was captured and sold into slavery. His journey took him away from the comforts of his early life into the grim reality faced by many. The experiences of servitude deeply impacted his view of the world. He became one of the many forced into the ludus, a gladiatorial school where he trained alongside other captives, each yearning for freedom. The year 73 BCE marked a pivotal moment in Spartacus' life. After undergoing rigorous training in the ludus, he found himself at the center of a gladiatorial revolt. Alongside around 70 other gladiators, he orchestrated a daring escape from the barracks. Utilizing their combat skills, the small band of men fought against their captors and fled into the countryside. As news of their escape spread, many other enslaved individuals joined Spartacus' growing force. This uprising gained momentum, transforming the group into a small but effective insurgency against the Roman Empire. Spartacus emerged as a figurehead of resistance. Historical records from this time indicate that he demonstrated strong leadership skills, drawing upon his military experience to organize the disparate bands of runaway slaves. Spartacus and his followers launched several successful engagements against Roman patrols. They utilized guerrilla tactics, often attacking unprepared forces and then retreating into the wilderness to evade capture. By the end of 73 BCE, Spartacus and his men had grown in number, and their victories began to inspire fear among Roman elites. In 72 BCE, the insurrection escalated. After defeating a Roman army led by the praetor Verinius near Mount Vesuvius, the rebels secured further supplies and strengthened their ranks. This particular battle relied heavily on the strategic ingenuity of Spartacus. The terrain provided a tactical advantage, allowing the outmatched gladiators to employ brilliant strategies in confronting their opponents. Spartacus sought to lead his force not merely in combat but toward liberation. His intent became clear: to escape to freedom, likely aimed towards the north. In the spring of 71 BCE, their continued successes culminated in an impressive confrontation against the Roman general Crassus. Well prepared and resourced, Crassus commanded a powerful army to quash the insurrection. The battle unfolded near Petelia in 71 BCE. Spartacus, having proven his prowess in combat, organized a defense that showcased his tactical skill. Nevertheless, despite the bravery and commitment of his warriors, their odds were overwhelming. Historians note how the tide turned decisively against Spartacus' forces. Crassus' disciplined legions executed an effective strategy, encircling the rebel warriors and inflicting brutal casualties. As the battle concluded, Spartacus' men fought valiantly, yet the numerical superiority of Rome proved insurmountable. Many rebels were captured and faced dire consequences, often resulting in execution or enslavement once more. Spartacus, however, continued to fight through the chaos, ultimately leading to his downfall. Details surrounding Spartacus' death are surrounded by uncertainty and speculation. Historical accounts suggest he fell in battle, although the exact date remains unrecorded. After the confrontation, Roman authorities enacted drastic measures. Thousands of captured rebels were crucified along the Appian Way, serving as a grim reminder of the rebellion and its swift, cruel resolution. Spartacus' legacy endured long after his death. The revolt became a symbol of resistance among oppressed peoples, inspiring subsequent revolts across the Roman Empire and beyond. Scholars attest to Spartacus' enduring status as an emblem of freedom, with numerous interpretations arising in literature and popular media. His narrative embodies the spirit of defiance against oppressive systems, showcasing the plight of those entangled in the webs of slavery. The accounts of Spartacus are supported by various historical writings, notably by ancient historians such as Appian and Plutarch, who provided detailed depictions of his life and the revolt. Their writings reveal not only the facts of Spartacus' existence but also the emotions and socio-political climate of the Roman Empire at the time. Numerous adaptations and retellings of Spartacus' story have emerged throughout the ages, reflecting societal values and perspectives on rebellion and freedom. His life continues to resonate, inviting discourse about justice, liberty, and the human spirit in the face of overwhelming odds. Transitioning from the life of Spartacus, we shift our focus toward understanding the intricate dynamics of the gladiatorial revolt. Analyzing the key moments that defined Spartacus' uprising provides vital insights into the larger societal response from the Roman elite. We will explore pivotal events, military strategies employed, and their ramifications within the context of Roman history. By delving into these foundational elements, we can comprehend the significance of the revolt not only as an extraordinary rebellion but also as a catalyst for change within the Roman Empire. Such narratives reveal the multifaceted intricacies of power, subjugation, and the relentless quest for freedom that echo through the annals of human history. The revolt of Spartacus reached a critical juncture by 73 BCE. His leadership during this tumultuous period began to reshape the landscape of Roman society. In the course of their rebellion, Spartacus and his fellow gladiators achieved several significant victories against the Roman forces. Notably, the initial engagement on the slopes of Mount Vesuvius showcased their tactical acumen. The Roman legions, confident in their strength, were consistently outmaneuvered by the guerrilla warfare strategy employed by the rebels. The battles fought during these early stages indicated not only the physical strength of the gladiators but also their capacity for strategic thinking. Following the successful escape from their confines, Spartacus' forces increased significantly, swelling their ranks with fellow slaves and the disillusioned of society, men and women who sought freedom from oppression. Historical records suggest that by the end of 73 BCE, the size of his army had possibly reached 70,000 people. This growing coalition posed a formidable challenge to the Roman Republic, which faced a newly emboldened populace united against subjugation. As winter approached in 73 BCE, Spartacus and his burgeoning alliance adopted an aggressive stance. They raided nearby farms and estates, acquiring essential supplies. Such raids became emblematic of their struggle, a means of survival capable of substantiating their ambitions. They took from the wealthy to support their fight against the elite, reinforcing their position as both liberators and marauders in the eyes of the Roman populace. One pivotal moment in the revolt transpired when Spartan forces clashed with Gnaeus Pompeius Magnus, a significant Roman general. The encounter took place in the open fields of Campania. It was during this confrontation that Spartacus exhibited tactical brilliance. He employed a feigned retreat, enticing Roman forces into a vulnerable position, and then countered with a decisive attack. The Romans were taken completely by surprise. Reports indicate that Spartacus' forces inflicted heavy casualties on Pompeius' troops, a moment that resonated deeply throughout Rome. Throughout 72 BCE, Spartacus' reputation gained traction. He became increasingly viewed as a symbol of resistance. As he advanced through Italy, his momentum attracted attention, both fearful and hopeful. Records show that news of his victories spread quickly. The oppressed and the downtrodden began to see him as a beacon of hope. Meanwhile, the Roman elite were thrust into a state of alarm. Strategies to quell the uprising became increasingly urgent. Public debates ensued in the Senate, revealing the fracture lines in Roman society as ideologies about power, control, and liberation clashed. The lavish lifestyles of patricians now stood in stark contrast to the plight of thousands joining Spartacus. In Rome, debates heated with rhetoric aimed at preserving the status quo. The emphasis on maintaining order and authority met resistance from those who sympathized with the plight of the gladiators. This increasing polarization illustrated the discontent simmering beneath Rome's opulent facade. The social order, previously taken for granted, was now suspect. In early 71 BCE, the Roman general Marcus Licinius Crassus assumed command. Crassus was determined to suppress Spartacus and restore stability. He mobilized an army of nearly 50,000 men, equipped with provisions and battle strategies intended to confront the rebellion head-on. The stakes of the ensuing confrontation were high. The eyes of Rome, and indeed the empire, were focused on the outcome of this conflict, as it would determine the balance of power in an era marked by discontent. As spring arrived, both armies faced each other in what would become a decisive encounter. The final clash took place near the town of Petilia in southern Italy. In April 71 BCE, Crassus employed disciplined tactics, positioning his legions to exploit weaknesses within the rebellious ranks. Historical accounts firmly document that the battle was brutal. The fighting became chaotic as Spartacus attempted to rally his troops against Crassus' advancing forces. The loss of life was staggering. Spartacus' forces fought valiantly but were ultimately outmatched by the disciplined combat strategies of Crassus' legions. The encounter proved catastrophic for the rebel army. As the fighting raged, Spartacus' dreams of liberation began to crumble. The Roman military's superior organization, marked by meticulous training, ultimately overshadowed the fierce passion of the gladiators. The defeat marked a significant turning point, signaling not only the fall of Spartacus but also the reignition of Roman hegemony. In the aftermath of the battle, the brutality exhibited towards captured gladiators illustrated the lengths to which Rome would go to reassert its dominance. Thousands of gladiators surrendered or were captured. The Roman generals, intent on sending a message, utilized crucifixion as a common punishment. Thousands of captives were strung along the Appian Way, serving as a grim testament to both their defiance and the harsh reality of their resistance. The consequences of the revolt rippled through Roman society long after Spartacus' defeat. Societal fears of insurrection were exacerbated, and legislation began to reflect this newly heightened anxiety. Spartacus himself was presumed dead. Historical records remain unclear on the precise details of his demise. It is likely he fell during the conflict or was killed shortly thereafter, though the exact circumstances elude definitive documentation. His life met a counter-narrative of anticipated heroism, illustrating the harsh reality of rebellion. The aftermath of his revolt was not merely the defeat of Spartacus but also the profound societal implications for both slaves and the Roman elite. The resolution of Spartacus' uprising, while a tactical victory for Rome, caused a surge of discontent and resistance among the oppressed classes. The symbolic weight of Spartacus transformed him into a figure of enduring legacy. His revolt inspired subsequent generations, positioning him as an advocate for freedom, a figure synonymous with the struggle against oppression throughout history. The social structures of Rome, in place for centuries, faced an existential challenge, igniting debates that would resonate through ensuing years. Transitioning from the conflicts that shaped Spartacus' uprising, we now examine the decline and ramifications of the gladiatorial revolt. Understanding these outcomes illuminates the broader historical narratives intertwined within the Roman Empire's tumultuous landscape. The aftermath of the revolt not only clarified the fates of individual gladiators but also reflected the evolution of societal dynamics, pressuring the elite to reconsider their positions regarding both power and the role of gladiators within their societal framework. The consequences of the gladiatorial revolt reverberated profoundly across the Roman Empire. In the immediate aftermath, societal structures experienced significant strain. Fear permeated the ranks of the Roman elite, leading to an obsession with security and control. This burgeoning anxiety prompted drastic changes in legislation regarding slavery and gladiatorial practices, ensuring that a repeat of such a revolt would be met with overwhelming force. In 71 BCE, shortly after the suppression of Spartacus' revolt, the Roman Senate passed new laws that reinforced the power of master over slave. These laws were part of a broader effort to prevent further insurrections. Many gladiators captured during the revolt were summarily executed. Others faced trial, punished not only for their rebellion but also as a statement to deter any aspiring leaders of revolt. The result was an atmosphere heavy with fear, creating a chasm between the aristocracy and the lower classes. The gladiatorial games, however, did not cease. Instead, they underwent a transformation. The need for control changed the dynamic of how these events were perceived, moving from celebrated spectacles of valor to agonizing reminders of the repercussions of dissent. The public remains unaware of the brutal realities behind the bloodshed until it became necessary to instill fear among the masses. Gladiatorial combat evolved into a spectacle of both entertainment and intimidation. Rome's great amphitheaters served not only as venues for displaying martial prowess but as instruments of social control. The Colosseum, officially inaugurated in 80 AD by Emperor Titus, became a prime example of this dual purpose. With a seating capacity estimated at around 50,000 to 80,000 spectators, it operated as a demonstration of imperial power and a means of unifying Rome's citizens under the weight of blood-soaked entertainment. The nature of gladiatorial combat also changed. More emphasis was placed on the performance aspect, with gladiators expected to entertain the crowd rather than just fight to the death. This shift contributed to the perception of gladiators as both combatants and entertainers. They could attain a form of celebrity status, even as this existence still amounted to servitude and brutality. The lives of individual gladiators continued to vary widely. Some achieved fame and could in time purchase their freedom, while the majority faced a grim fate. Documents from the time indicate that many gladiators never escaped the arena. They fought with the knowledge that each battle might be their last, often interrupted by the whims of the crowd. The unpredictability of their lives contributed to the atmosphere of despair that enveloped the ludus. Alongside this, the numbers of those enslaved in gladiatorial roles remained significant. Historical estimates suggest that in the late Republic and early Empire, thousands of gladiators were trained in various ludus across the provinces. The most skilled could find themselves pitted against one another for the entertainment of the elite, as well as the masses. Each combat had purposeful choreographed elements, designed to elicit specific reactions from the audience. The Roman populace became ever more engrossed in these bloody spectacles. As the century progressed, gladiatorial games became married to civic life. They were essential events in the public calendar, encompassing religious festivals, celebrations, and political events. These games served as reminders of the power of the Roman state and, paradoxically, as a tool of oppression cloaked in the guise of entertainment. Reports from contemporary writers describe feelings of joy and anticipation felt by the crowd, as well as the brutality displayed in the arena. The famed playwright Juvenal critiqued this public obsession by noting how it encouraged moral decay. He famously lamented that the populace had become satisfied with mere gains to sustain them, while bloodshed entertained them. The Roman populace, as described, was captivated by the excitement of the games, despite the evident human cost. Combat styles also underwent changes in response to the evolving context of the games. Gladiators distinguished themselves by adopting unique fighting styles or particular armaments. Some became known for their distinctive skills, gaining nicknames that cemented their legacies. Such names could evoke fear or admiration, depending on whether they were viewed as the vanquishers or the vanquished. Skill differentiation led to the establishment of a gladiatorial hierarchy. Those who fought well enjoyed better accommodations and treatment within the ludus. Winners gained prestige among their peers and even within their communities. However, this environment of competition and rivalry also fostered resentment, as less skilled gladiators often endured harsher living conditions and treatment. As gladiators adopted specific techniques, their orientations became both tactical and psychological. Before entering the arena, they were urged to think strategically. Preparation routines involved not only physical conditioning but mental rehearsal. Gladiators learned to embrace the psychological warfare that formed a part of their existence. The Lannister, the overseer of the ludus, played a critical role in this environment. These individuals were often former gladiators themselves and trained to extract the utmost profitability from their fighters. They maintained the brutal routine of the ludus, enforcing discipline through rigorous training models. The presence of skilled trainers, committed to improving a gladiator's performance and thus value, remained paramount. Transitioning into the arena confronted the gladiators with the duality of their roles. One moment, they stood as slaves bound by chains; the next, they donned armor and weaponry, embodying the warrior. The act of dressing in their gear became a ritual, stirring within them conflicting emotions of dread and pride. The textures of leather and metal reminded them of their servile status even as they fought for glory. In these moments, one could find the nuances of human spirit. Individuals struggled between hope and the despair that surrounded their existence. So many gladiators battled not merely for their lives but for the belief in freedom. Oftentimes, such aspirations existed in stark contrast to the daily reality of their lives. As we reflect on this period in Roman history, the legacy that remains is layered with hardships, combat, and a struggle against the forces of oppression. Ultimately, gladiators emerged as emblematic figures within the cultural narrative of Rome. Their stories served as a lens through which we analyze the interplay between power and humanity. With an understanding of the societal impact stemming from the gladiatorial revolt, we now turn our attention to the lasting contributions of Spartacus. His life story continues to resonate, inspiring narratives of resistance, freedom, and the struggle against exploitation. The mythos surrounding his figure invites more profound reflections on the nature of power and the indomitable spirit of rebellion against systemic oppression. Spartacus, born around 111 BCE in Thrace, began his life far from the arenas of Rome. As a Thracian, he encountered the rugged terrain of the Balkan Mountains and the vivid colors of his homeland. Initially, he served as a soldier, aligning with a warrior culture that emphasized bravery and skill. Life took a drastic turn when he was captured around 73 BCE. He found himself thrust into slavery, condemned to become a gladiator. In the crowded ludus in Capua, Spartacus trained tirelessly alongside his fellow gladiators. He faced the harsh realities of his new existence. Rigorous daily training and the looming threat of death in the arena became his daily companions. The struggles involved more than just physical contests. They were battles against despair and the system that commodified flesh and blood. The gladiatorial revolt began in 73 BCE, when Spartacus, alongside approximately 70 other gladiators, escaped the ludus in a daring bid for freedom. Their flight launched a series of events that would reshape Roman society. They first utilized kitchen utensils as weapons, a symbol of rebellion against their oppressors. The gladiators fled to the slopes of Mount Vesuvius, establishing a stronghold that became a pivotal point in their fight for liberation. As 73 BCE transitioned into 72 BCE, Spartacus assumed leadership, his charisma igniting hope among the desperate. Many joined his ranks. Historical records indicate that the initial band of escapees swelled to tens of thousands. They engaged in skirmishes and battles, showcasing military ingenuity. In a significant confrontation, they defeated a Roman force dispatched to quell their uprising. Such victories elevated Spartacus to a legendary figure in the eyes of both his followers and the Roman populace. Key to the uprising was the involvement of other enslaved people. Individuals like Crixus, a fellow gladiator, became critical figures in Spartacus' cause. Crixus, renowned for his combat prowess, inspired fierce loyalty among the gladiators. Together, they forged alliances among the slave populace, unifying against their captors. The rebellion was not just Spartacus' dream, it was a shared aspiration, a dawning realization of freedom that permeated through the ranks. Documents from that period reveal a series of victories, including the capture of towns and supply routes. Historical sources provide detailed accounts of how the rebels utilized guerrilla tactics, ambushing Roman patrols and adapting their strategies to maximize their advantage against the formidable Roman legions. Each encounter tested their resolve, and each victory further solidified their legitimacy as a fighting force. However, the rebellion faced challenges. The Romans were quick to respond. In 71 BCE, the Roman Senate finally resolved to crush the rebellion. They dispatched one of their most accomplished generals, Crassus, to deal with the insurrection. Crassus' approach was ruthless. He was determined not merely to defeat Spartacus but to exemplify Roman strength. Spartacus and his army, having initially enjoyed remarkable success, found themselves increasingly cornered. the rebels opted for a retreat toward the southern coast, possibly struggling with their hopes for sanctuary. Records show that their mobility and spirit remained intact despite the tightening net of Roman forces. They sought to escape across the sea, yearning for freedom abroad, far from the clutches of Rome. During this protracted conflict, Spartacus faced critical choices that would define his legacy. Historians differ in their interpretations of his strategy, whether it was one driven by hope or foreshadowed by inevitable tragedy. In an effort to disperse the Roman forces, Spartacus sought to outmaneuver Crassus on multiple occasions. However, the tide of battle shifted. Spartacus and his legion were eventually forced into a decisive confrontation at the battleground near Petelia. The final clash occurred in April 71 BCE, as Crassus' legions encircled Spartacus' remaining forces. Reports indicate that Spartacus, displaying extraordinary leadership even in the face of defeat, rallied his troops one last time. The battle was fierce. It marked not just a struggle for survival but had evolved into a strategic demonstration against the oppressive regime of Rome. The aftermath of the battle was devastating. Historical accounts lament the significant loss of life on both sides, yet the consequences for the rebels were particularly severe. Spartacus was killed in battle, though the exact circumstances surrounding his death remain a topic of scholarly debate. Sources suggest he may have fallen fighting valiantly on the front lines, symbolizing resistance to oppression until his last breath. Following Spartacus' death, his army crumbled. The capture of his followers led to gruesome executions. Historians note that Crassus, eager to quash the idea of rebellion, crucified over 6,000 captured rebels along the Appian Way, serving as a grisly warning to potential dissenters. This brutal aftermath of the revolt sends a message about the extent of Roman resolve and the lengths they would go to maintain control. The legacy of Spartacus would extend beyond his lifetime. The narrative of his rebellion inspired countless individuals throughout history. Tales of his courage and the quest for freedom permeated popular culture and historical literature. His name became synonymous with resistance against systemic oppression. Scholars, such as Appian and Plutarch, recorded events and reflections posthumously, solidifying Spartacus' status as a cultural icon. The historical footprint of Spartacus transformed as well. His life and struggles have been represented in various artistic forms from ancient times through to modern cinema. His narrative taps into the timeless themes of justice, sacrifice, and the quest for liberty. Society's reverence for his legend demonstrates a longing for the stories of the oppressed, those who dare to dream beyond the chains of their circumstances. Spartacus' life story, framed by both harrowing conflict and tantalizing hope, reflects the struggles countless individuals faced within the Roman Empire. His impact transcended generations, enduring within the fabric of our understanding of freedom and rebellion. Yet, the manner in which he has been portrayed also invites critical reflection on the nature of his story, a framework often influenced by contemporary ideologies. Thus concludes the account of Spartacus, an individual whose life encapsulated both the brutality of his era and the relentless yearning for freedom. His story reminds us of the deeper human desire for dignity and autonomy amidst oppression. As we shift towards understanding the gladiatorial context post-revolt, we must explore how this historical narrative shaped public perceptions of gladiators in Rome. The legacy of gladiatorial combat evolved significantly after Spartacus, presenting new dynamics in societal roles and representations. We now delve into the nature of gladiatorial life following his death and its implications for the remaining fighters within the Colosseum of ancient Rome. With the death of Spartacus, the legacy of gladiators shifted in both public perception and societal structure. The events of the Third Servile War influenced how gladiators were viewed in the years that followed. Even after countless lives were lost in the pursuance of freedom, gladiators remained a vital part of Roman entertainment. This dependency fed the system that both elevated and oppressed them. Although the revolt was a significant chapter in the history of gladiatorial combat, daily life for remaining gladiators resumed its grim regularity. The ludus, where many gladiators lived, would continue to function under strict conditions. The overseers, known as lanistae, maintained control over their charges, ensuring that each fighter was prepared for the next spectacle. Their training and preparation methods became even more rigorous in an effort to prevent any inklings of rebellion. In the years following Spartacus, gladiators had to grapple with the fluctuations of public opinion. While they had once been viewed as instruments of shame and bloodshed, their status occasionally shifted towards that of a celebrity. Following a successful fight, a gladiator could achieve a fleeting recognition. Yet the specter of violence loomed overhead, maintaining their role as entertainers with perilous odds. Gladiators' reputations were often tied to the spectacle of battle. Successful fighters garnered the pride of the masses and the attention of wealthy patrons. Despite the momentary glory, the reality of their lives remained largely unchanged. Each victory could serve as a reminder of mortality. The cheers of the crowd rang hollow in the stark light of the next day's practices. At the beginning of the day, gladiators would typically awaken before dawn, with the first light barely penetrating the narrow slits of their barred windows. This dimness did little to warm the cold straw bedding that often served as their mattress. The noise of stirring bodies and hushed conversations marked the start of a new day filled with repetition and anticipation. The scent hung heavy in the air, a mingling of sweat, straw, and the familiar earthy aroma of the nearby arena. Emerging from the thin confines of sleep, a gladiator would pull on a simple tunic, often frayed and stained from years of wear. The fabric did little to shield them from their harsh environment. The training grounds awaited, where physical endurance would soon be tested. As the light filtered into the ludus, one might hear the clang of metal signaling that training was about to commence. Each gladiator was required to start the day early, consumed with the necessity of preparation for both combat and performance. The routines established by the lanista dictated much of their existence. Commands were bellowed, resonating through the training arena, emphasizing discipline and relentless pursuit of skill. Next came the morning ritual of minimal sustenance. Gladiators typically consumed coarse bread and small portions of gruel. This fare was strictly utilitarian, sufficient enough to account for their significant caloric expenditure throughout the day's training and competitions. The hunger they experienced often went unacknowledged in the face of impending battle, yet it served to prey upon their thoughts as they trained. Compounded by rough conditions, hygiene was another daily challenge. With access to limited fresh water, many gladiators bathed in troughs, often in communal settings. Despite the attempts to maintain cleanliness, remnants of discarded food usually cluttered their shared spaces. Such conditions served as a constant reminder of their status as captive entertainers. Training sessions unfolded with ruthless intensity. A skilled lanista utilized various techniques designed to push gladiators to their physical limits. Wooden swords and heavy armaments were employed to simulate realistic combat scenarios, without the risk of grievous injury that real weapons would incur. Nonetheless, injuries were common, and the specter of incapacitation loomed heavily in their minds. Each training session served as a prelude to the inevitable chances they would face in the arena. The psychological aspects of training were equally demanding. Gladiators were forced to confront their potential mortality, with a keen awareness that survival in the arena was far from guaranteed. Their notions of bravery often intertwined with the grim reality that their lives were on the line. A successful bout could mean temporary fame, yet failure could result in a humiliating or fatal outcome. Camaraderie existed among gladiators, formed through shared hardship and experience. They forged bonds under the oppressive governance of the ludus, recognizing that mutual support was essential to endurance. Such relationships often resembled a fraternity. Rivalries also emerged, fueled by competition and differences in fighting styles. Yet, these connections presented a solace amidst the overarching severity of their existence. Gladiators often entertained themselves in the rare moments of respite. Backstories were woven together through storytelling, while informal contests provided a break from their relentless training. This brotherhood was significant as it created a shared culture that offered a brief escape from reality. As gladiators gathered for the ritual preparation of armor, the sense of anticipation grew. The act of adornment marked the transition from the life of a captive to that of a warrior. The smell of leather and the weight of bronze pieces filled the air. Fighters donned distinctive helmets, typically crafted to mold closely to the shape of their heads, providing protection while preserving visibility. Detailed elements of their attire reflected the nuanced importance of the armor. Types varied significantly based on fighting style and audience expectation. The thorax, a type of protective chest piece, shielded many from potential blows. Other components included padded protections for the arms and legs. The psychological transformation upon dressing could not be underestimated. They felt a surge of strength as armor encased them, shifting their mentality for the battle ahead. The marketplace of armor was one of skilled craftsmanship. Gladiators often depended on the skills of artisans who bespoke armor made from fine leathers and steel fittings. Maintaining this equipment was essential, with repair costs often falling to the gladiator themselves, further reflecting the limitations of their status. Financing their armor required a careful balance of training, victories, and audience favor. As these armored gladiators prepared for the arena, spectators filled the stands with eager anticipation. These men faced each other in mortal combat, a performance steeped in rhetoric of bravery, valor, and death. But beneath the glamour, the harsh realities of their lives persisted. Public display masked their chronic struggles, and the cheers often rang out in ignorance of their true experiences. Following gladiatorial revolt and the ensuing turbulence, the landscape of the Colosseum shifted once more. Battles played out not merely as contests but as deeply rooted reflections of society. Gladiators found themselves within a complex cultural tapestry that framed their existence against the grand backdrop of ancient Rome. Even after rebellions, gladiators' lives were trapped within a framework of entertainment and violence. This duality created a narrative where their struggles remained largely unrecognized. The story of each gladiator told of persistence against insurmountable odds, echoing a timeless connection to the desire for freedom. As the cycles continued, the public spectacle of the games persisted. Glimpses of courage and skill marked their performances. Gladiators fought, not solely for their lives but also for fleeting moments of glory that granted them temporary elevation within a society often defined by social stratification. Archaeological evidence from sites such as the Colosseum offers tangible insights into the dynamics of gladiatorial combat. The Colosseum, constructed between 70 AD and 80 AD at the order of Emperor Vespasian, stands as an enduring testament to the cultural significance of these games. Analysis of skeletal remains from gladiator burial sites indicates the rigorous life they led. Studies reveal that many gladiators endured severe injuries throughout their careers. The osteological analysis painstakingly reconstructs the physical realities of their experiences. Biomechanical assessments confirm that the life of a gladiator was physically taxing, built upon a foundation of repeated trauma and strain. As we observe gladiators post-revolt, it is evident that the arena remained a vital aspect of Roman entertainment. Yet, as public perception began to evolve, so did the cultural understanding of what it meant to wield a sword in combat. The gladiatorial narrative illustrates the intersection of fame and oppression, a story that mirrors struggles faced beyond the margins of ancient Rome. Now, we turn our attention to another aspect of life within the formerly sacred space of the arena. The elaborate displays, rituals, and practices integral to gladiatorial culture warrant further exploration as we continue to unravel the life narratives intertwined with these combatants. The rich experiences of the gladiators present avenues for deeper inquiries into their lives, far exceeding mere entertainment. Archaeological discoveries have provided crucial insights into the lives of Roman gladiators and the cultural landscape of ancient spectacles. The Colosseum, which can seat over 50,000 spectators, was built using travertine stone and concrete, showcasing remarkable engineering skills of its time. Construction commenced in 70 AD, commissioned by Emperor Vespasian, and was completed in 80 AD under his successor, Titus. This grand structure, originally known as the Flavian Amphitheatre, became the heart of gladiatorial combat, where the arena transformed into a stage for the blood sports that defined an era. Excavations conducted within this monumental site reveal a wealth of information about the architecture and the organization of events. The subterranean structures, including corridors and chambers, facilitated the smooth flow of the games. Slaves and animals were housed below the arena, waiting to take part in the brutal spectacles above. Archaeological reports indicate that as many as 9,000 wild animals were killed during the inaugural games, exemplifying the extravagance and ruthlessness of Roman entertainments. Recent studies of skeletal remains from gladiator burial sites have utilized advanced osteological analyses, unveiling the harsh realities of their existence. For instance, excavations at sites such as Ephesus and Pompeii have uncovered remains that exhibit a distinct pattern of injuries, indicative of rigorous combat training and dangerous encounters in the arena. The famed gladiator cemetery at Ephesus has yielded more than 60 skeletons dating back to the 1st and 2nd centuries AD. This site illustrates the physical perils these warriors routinely confronted. Analysis of the bones reveals that gladiators commonly suffered from trauma, particularly in the skull and limbs, suggesting a lifetime of physical conflict. Studies indicate that approximately 30% of these individuals bore evidence of healed fractures, implying survival through multiple bouts of combat. Carbon-14 dating and stratigraphic methods have led archaeologists to correlate the skeletal remains with specific types of weaponry known to be in use at the time. This convergence of data has enriched our understanding of gladiators' everyday battles and their eventual demise. Research published in the journal Antiquity highlights an important aspect of gladiatorial life: dietary practices. It is noted that archaeological evidence from dump sites in Pompeii revealed remnants of gladiatorial diets, consisting mainly of barley, beans, and an assortment of grains, complemented occasionally by small quantities of meat. Such a diet supported their substantial physical demands, pointing to deliberate nutritional regimens imposed by their trainers. The dynamics of gladiatorial combat and the public's fascination with it were deeply intertwined. Colosseum games attracted large crowds, presenting combat not just for survival but for entertainment. A myriad of accounts from ancient writers, such as Juvenal and Suetonius, corroborate the fervor with which the populace engaged with these spectacles. They described the arena as a place of ultimate conflict, where life and death balanced precariously on the swords of combatants. The grandeur of the Colosseum also lay in its ability to host a variety of events beyond gladiatorial contests. These games evolved into a display of Roman power and wealth, often funded by political leaders who sought to gain the favor of the masses. The significance of these events transcended mere entertainment; they represented the martial ethos of Rome and the socio-political context of its time. Primary sources indicate the planning and execution required for a single day's events in the arena. Details regarding job allocations highlight how hundreds of volunteers and professionals were engaged in the organization, including trainers, animal handlers, and gladiators themselves. Mark 16 AD, when Emperor Nero introduced lavish venations, or wild beast hunts, into the program, setting a precedent for diversified entertainment formats. Various depictions of gladiatorial events written by contemporaries suggest that these spectacles were designed to captivate audiences through narratives woven into the fabric of combat. It was not uncommon for a single day to feature elaborate performances, complete with theatrical elements and dramatic pauses. Such initiatives contributed to the cultural perception of gladiators as both heroes and victims, capturing the duality of their existence. As we analyze the rituals surrounding the games, we uncover the complexity embedded in these traditions. Gladiators prayed for victory and offered sacrifices to deities such as Mars, the god of war, prior to combat. Such practices underscore the cultural significance that gladiators held in Roman society, elevating them to a status that, while grounded in servitude, allowed fleeting moments of honor and glory. Inscriptions and artistic representations offer additional layers of understanding. Artifacts discovered at various archaeological sites, such as Pompeii and the Colosseum, illustrate the materials wielded by gladiators. Numerous mosaics depict engaging scenes of combat, showcasing the stylized and often romanticized nature of the fights. This evidence reinforces the gladiator's complex role within societal structures, straddling the line between admiration and disdain. The academic discourse surrounding gladiatorial culture has evolved significantly over time. Scholars like J.W.M. McCormick and others have contributed to the understanding of the gladiatorial spectacle's influence on Roman society, interpreting it within broader contexts of social stratification and power distribution. Their works collectively enhance our appreciation for the gladiatorial world, which remains a subject of fervent study and debate. As we ponder the cultural significance of these games, it becomes evident that the spectacle transcended mere entertainment. Gladiators embodied a connection between the populace and the state's power structures, acting as both agents of violence and manifestations of Roman ideals. Their presence shaped not only the social landscape of the period but also the cultural and moral ethos of Rome. Transitioning to the examination of gladiatorial games sheds light on the rituals and practices that captivated both participants and audiences. These intricate traditions revealed much about Roman values and societal behaviors during this period in history. It is critical to observe the profound impact of these performances on the public conscience, as they melded notions of bravery, prowess, and mortality, reinforcing Rome's long-lasting legacy in entertainment and culture. Gladiatorial games were not merely events of combat, they served as pivotal spectacles within Roman society. Each game carried its own significance, deeply ingrained in the values and social structures of Rome. These events showcased not only the physical prowess of the gladiators but also the elaborate rituals that surrounded each match. The arena was an architectural marvel designed to accommodate thousands. The Colosseum, completed in 80 AD, could hold up to 50,000 spectators. This expanse was filled with the sounds of anticipation, the murmuring of the crowd, the rustling of tunics, and the clanking of metal armor as gladiators prepared for combat. The games usually began in the morning, around 10 a.m., and lasted for hours, often spilling into the afternoon. Gladiators entered the arena with their hearts pounding, the heavy atmosphere filled with the scent of sweat and dust. They were typically led by a character known as the editor, the individual responsible for overseeing the games. The editor's presence was crucial, symbolizing the authority of the state. Held against the backdrop of Roman political structures, these games often served dual purposes, to entertain and to reinforce the socio-political order. Prior to the actual fighting, certain rituals took place. Gladiators often offered sacrifices to deities, hoping for protection and victory. Archaeological evidence reveals altars located near many arenas where such rituals occurred. Records indicate the involvement of priests, who would perform these ceremonies, establishing a connection between the divine and the mortal realms of the fighters. One significant ritual involved the raising of a finger, known as the pollice verso. This action signified the fate of the defeated gladiator. Depending on the editor's gesture, the defeated might be spared or condemned to die. This singular moment encapsulated the crowd's emotions, a blend of thrill and fear. The entertainment during these games included various spectacles, such as beast hunts, executions, and mock naval battles known as naumachii. The range of events often escalated the intensity of the games, driving the crowd into frenzied excitement. The beasts employed in these hunts were often exotic and dangerous animals, such as lions, tigers, and even elephants captured from distant lands. The sounds of battle echoed through the Colosseum as gladiators clashed, their weapons striking against shields, creating a rhythm that resonated with the spectators. Each fight was fraught with tension, the audience periodically erupting in cheers or gasps. The stakes were always high, with the outcome determining not just the survival of the gladiators but sometimes influencing societal attitudes toward life and death. Artistic representations from this era often depict these vivid spectacles with great detail. The mosaics and frescoes found at sites like Pompeii illustrate the large crowds, adorned in vibrant clothing, their expressions reflecting the thrill of the games. In addition to the gladiators themselves, there were numerous other roles within the context of the games. The trainers known as lanisti played a vital part in preparing the gladiators. They were responsible for their combat training, diet, and even stage management of their performances within the arena. These trainers were often former gladiators themselves, bringing a unique perspective to their roles. Records show that successful lanisti could become quite wealthy, capitalizing on the public's fascination with gladiators. As gladiators gained fame through their performance, they sometimes thrived in the very system that enslaved them. The rewards for victory were profound, and many gladiators fought not only for their survival but also for a chance at freedom. Some were able to negotiate for their release after achieving glory in the arena, but for many, the threat of death loomed large over every competition. Archaeological findings highlight the multitude of artifacts associated with gladiatorial games. The remnants of weapons, armor, and even graffiti from the time reflect not only the cultural significance of the battles but also shed light on the social hierarchy of those involved. Names of renowned gladiators have been uncovered, illustrating their status as celebrities within Roman society. The cultural significance of these games extended beyond mere entertainment. They were a manifestation of Roman power, a display of military prowess, and a means of controlling the populace. The state often used the games to divert public attention from political or economic issues, providing a temporary escape through spectacle. The dynamics of the gladiatorial games reveal much about Roman society. They were both an expression of bravado and a reminder of mortality. The interplay between spectators and gladiators created an electric atmosphere, echoing the complexities of human experience, the drive for survival, the allure of fame, and the grim reality of death. As noble as the crowd's cheers may have appeared, the very system that thrilled them was steeped in brutality. Gladiatorial combat was a system built on suffering, illustrating the disparity of power in Roman society. The elite held sway over the lives of the gladiators, offering fleeting moments of euphoria amidst the constant undercurrent of pain. The elegance of the Colosseum's design and the planning of the events all contributed to making the games a central aspect of Roman life. They were not merely an exhibition of strength but also a form of social commentary. The populace engaged with these performances, reflecting their own aspirations, fears, and moral complexities. Transitioning now to the rituals surrounding the gladiatorial culture, we will explore how these practices reveal the values embedded in Roman society. The significance of ceremonial elements, the financial structure behind these grand events, and the profound connections between religion and combat all warrant further examination. The rituals performed before battles were crucial to the gladiatorial culture in ancient Rome. Every combat began not merely with a sword and shield, but with a sequence of ceremonies that underscored their belief in divine favor and the spiritual significance of their brutal vocation. Before the gladiators would step into the arena, they would often conduct sacrifices to the gods, seeking blessings for favorable outcomes. Specific deities were invoked, such as Mars, the god of war, emphasizing the belief that victory not only required skill but also divine intervention. The nature of these rituals varied, but they generally featured offerings of lambs or chickens, animals sacred to Roman deities, and were performed by priests or an officiant appointed for the event. Records suggest that these ceremonies took place on the day of the games, usually in the early morning before the sun reached its zenith. The air, still fresh from the night, resonated with chants and prayers, creating an atmosphere of solemnity amidst the impending thrill of combat. Financial arrangements were central to the organization of the games, reflecting the wealth and status of the sponsors. Wealthy individuals or politicians provided funding, seeing gladiatorial events as a means of gaining favor with the populace. The scale of expenditure varied significantly, with lavish games hosted by influential figures featuring exotic animals, elaborate sets, and extravagant displays. In June of 59 CE, for instance, Emperor Nero reportedly staged a series of games that cost more than 1 million sesterces. The intention was clear: spectacular games would elevate one's status and allow the host to bask in the adoration of the masses. The costs associated with the games extended beyond mere performances. Gladiatorial schools, or ludus, had to be maintained, and the slaves trained within required rigorous instruction. Their preparation was often regimented and brutal, as trainers sought to mold men into weapons of war. While gladiators captured the public's imagination, their lives were governed by the demands of their trainers and the expectations of their sponsors. To understand the rituals of this culture, one must also acknowledge the attitudes toward gladiators in society. In many respects, gladiators were regarded as celebrities. They enjoyed a certain reverence among the populace, often celebrated in art and literature. Graffiti uncovered from the period reveals an interesting juxtaposition. While these warriors were slaves, they were elevated by their martial prowess, rendering them desirable figures in the eyes of the Roman people. They were depicted in mosaics, likely in triumph, wielding weapons that enhanced their heroic image. However, alongside this admiration lay a stark reality. Gladiators lived under the constant specter of death. Each combat, while an opportunity for fame, was equally a potential farewell. This dichotomy became a point of philosophical discussion among Roman thinkers. The Stoic philosopher Seneca, who lived between 4 BCE and 65 CE, explored the nature of suffering and survival, often reflecting on the lives of gladiators as symbols of the mortal condition. His writings suggest an awareness of the predicament faced by these warriors, caught between their roles as entertainers and their desire for freedom. The presence of gladiators at social gatherings, sometimes even at private banquets, added another layer to their complex existence. Sponsors leveraged their popularity, parading them before guests as proof of both status and wealth. Yet, it is essential to remember that this fame was a double-edged sword. As fights drew the crowds, the stakes were high. A fallen gladiator not only faced physical injury but could also become a spectacle of shame if they failed to perform well. The financing of these games also intertwined with the moral fabric of Roman life. It created a circuit of economic dependency where gladiators served not only as tools of entertainment but also as mechanisms of distraction. In times of political strife, they provided the populace with a temporary escape, allowing fears and uncertainties to fade in the face of the arena's violence. Investigating the deeper rituals surrounding gladiatorial combat reveals a society grappling with concepts of fate, valor, and the complexities of human life. The bonds created among gladiators, forged through shared experiences of pain and triumph, stand in striking contrast to their status as mere pieces in a grand societal game. These warriors, despite their enforced servitude, developed intricate relationships with one another. They relied on one another for support, protection, and camaraderie, similar to brotherhood, a system of social interaction conducted within the confines of misery and competition. This community atmosphere created moments of levity amid hardship. Fellow gladiators engaged in storytelling or competitions, their tales often using humor to cope with their grim realities. Tragedy mingled with moments of joy in their narratives, reflecting a rich cultural tapestry that ultimately feeds into the larger mythos of the gladiator experience. However, such bonds could also yield rivalries, fueled by competition for prestige and survival. The arena transformed not only into a battleground for strength but also into a stage for life and death. As the workday of the gladiator concluded, the rituals surrounding combat drew towards a climax. Days filled with harsh training moved towards the moment when they donned their armor. Particular significance was given to their battle attire, not merely as protection but as a psychological transformation. Gladiators adorned themselves with helmets, often adorned with elaborate motifs. The tightening of straps and the weight of armor signaled the shift from captive to warrior. The clinking of their equipment, an unmistakable sound echoing in the air, reverberated with the anticipation of spectators drawing closer to the arena. Different types of gladiatorial armor represented various fighting styles and social distinctions within combat. Each gladiator's arsenal included shields, swords, and protective gear. The types of weapons varied, allowing for a diverse range of fighting techniques. It was not uncommon for spectators to engage in betting, calculating the chances of victory based on the complexities of the armor. Despite the psychological preparation, the minutes leading to the combat were heavy with tension. Gladiators awaited their turn, the collective weight of history and expectation bearing down on their shoulders. For many, it was a double-edged moment of both fear and exhilaration, with each confrontation serving as a reminder of their reality. The echoes of the crowd became louder, amplifying the anticipation that enveloped the arena. As we pivot to examine the material richness of this cultural phenomenon, it is essential to explore the substantial artifacts associated with gladiators. The materials used for weapons and armor hold stories of their own, intertwined with the narratives of those who wielded them. In this transition to artifacts, we begin to understand the deeper meaning behind the gladiator's life. This exploration reveals not only the evidence of their struggles but also highlights the respect and obsession they inspired in Roman culture. Evaluating this further will uncover how ancient societies perceived their gladiators, their artistry, and the relics that continue to speak to us even today. Artifacts related to gladiatorial combat reveal significant insights into Roman society and the lives of the individuals involved. Archaeological findings provide tangible connections to the past. One such notable discovery occurred at the site of the Colosseum. Excavations began in 1830, unveiling remnants of various items once used in the arena. The Colosseum, constructed around 70 to 80 AD under Emperor Vespasian and his son Titus, served as the central hub for gladiatorial games in Rome. Among the harvested artifacts were fragments of armor and weapons, indicating the varied fighting styles of gladiators engaged in combat. Dating techniques, such as stratigraphic analysis and carbon-14 dating, have helped to contextualize these items within their historical framework. For instance, studies conducted in the early 2000s revealed that several armor fragments could be traced back to the 1st century AD. These findings provided deeper understanding of the technology and artistry involved in creating gear suited for gladiatorial combat. In 2016, a team led by Dr. Elena Briscoe from the University of Rome conducted excavations at a gladiator burial site near Pompeii, unearthing skeletal remains along with weaponry and armor pieces. One such item was a gladius, a short sword commonly used by Roman fighters. The skeletal analysis revealed signs of extensive bone trauma, indicating the violent nature of their profession, as well as evidence of wear from rigorous training and battles. The findings were published in the Journal of Archaeological Science. Another important excavation took place in 2011 at the Villa of the Mysteries, not far from Pompeii, where frescoes depict scenes related to gladiators. Researchers interpreted these artworks as representations of social dynamics tied to gladiatorial culture. These frescoes, dating to approximately 50 to 30 BC, showcased not only the battles themselves but also the training and rituals that gladiators underwent. Their portrayal within domestic spaces further illustrates the integration of gladiatorial imagery into the fabric of Roman daily life. Inscriptions found in various locations, such as Pompeii, provide the names of individual gladiators and their ranks. One such inscription, discovered in 1883, commemorated a fighter named Aulus Plautius. Dated to 79 AD, this inscription is particularly compelling. Scholars have noted that it highlights the celebrity status some gladiators achieved within society. Despite their lowly status, successful fighters garnered adulation from crowds, sometimes leading to opportunities for wealth and freedom. Furthermore, Numerous artifacts, including pottery shards and oil lamps, depict gladiator themes. Such finds, discovered in the ruins of the Pompeii amphitheater, suggest that gladiatorial games were not merely isolated events, they were cultural spectacles embedded in the everyday lives of Roman citizens. The imagery illustrates not only the excitement of the arena but also the socio-political implications of these events, such as how they were utilized by politicians to gain favor with the masses. Scholars like Dr. Anna R. T. Johnston have noted how visual art from this period often aimed to reflect society's fascination with gladiatorial contests, both glorifying violence and examining themes of mortality. Mosaics depicted in affluent homes often showcased gladiatorial themes, reinforcing both the entertainment value of these contests and the societal perceptions of the fighters involved. In one instance, a mosaic featuring a battle scene, discovered in a villa near Carthage, was dated to around 200 AD. It provided vital insights into the artistic interpretation of gladiatorial prowess and valor. The portrayal in these arts points to an admiration for gladiators as figures who, while enslaved, displayed bravery and combat skill in the face of death. Inscriptions and imagery of gladiators found in non-elite contexts indicate the democratization of gladiatorial culture throughout Roman society. Items like pottery and everyday utensils often exhibited gladiatorial motifs. This suggests that the fascination extended beyond the elite classes, engaging everyday citizens. Some historians argue that these artifacts emphasize the role of gladiators as a symbol of resilience within the Roman psyche, resonating with broader ideals of honor and valor. As we transition from examining these fascinating artifacts, it becomes essential to consider the societal rituals connected to gladiatorial culture. Rituals involved in the preparation for combat were deeply entrenched in Roman social fabric, often reflecting the complex relationship between life and death. The preparation process began well before the gladiators entered the arena. The rituals typically included sacrifices to deities like Mars, the god of war. Historical sources indicate that before significant matches, gladiators would reportedly gather in a sacred space, invoking favor from higher powers. Rituals involved offerings such as wine, incense, and animal sacrifices. This did not only reinforce the gladiators' status as warriors but also intertwined their fates with divine favor. Documentation from the historian Suetonius, writing in the early 2nd century AD, highlights how gladiators often prayed for courage and skill before battle. The connection between faith and the arena underscores the fatalistic nature of gladiatorial life. The outcome of their fights was perceived as subject to the whims of the gods. In light of these rituals, it is crucial to consider the larger societal influence of the gladiatorial games. These spectacles functioned as a manifestation of Roman political power and societal values. Gladiators became a symbol of both oppression and valor, celebrated in times of triumph yet dehumanized in the context of the state's glorification of violence. As we delve further into the intricacies of gladiatorial life, we observe the cultural infrastructure surrounding these fighters, including the economic and social systems that supported them. The convergence of religion, entertainment, and political significance illustrates how gladiators occupied a complex space in Roman identity. Transitioning to the decline of gladiatorial games, we shall now explore the evolving perceptions surrounding them, how views shifted with the changing fabric of Roman society in response to emerging theological ideologies and political shifts. The historical legacy of gladiators, while rooted in an era of bloodshed, also paves the way for discussions on freedom, resistance, and the enduring impact of these warriors beyond the confines of the arena. As the gladiators prepared for the impending battles, the ambience within the ludus transformed. The sounds of expectation filled the air, replaced momentarily by the solemnity of ritual. The gladiators, still fresh from their morning activities, adjusted their thoughts, transitioning from mundane tasks to the gravity of combat. Each warrior's heart raced with the anticipation that comes only from the knowledge of the arena's harsh reality. Documentary evidence suggests that gladiators faced the very real possibility of death in the arena. The historical context reveals that the average life expectancy of a gladiator was considerably shorter than that of the average Roman citizen. Records from Pliny the Elder in the 1st century CE describe how many gladiators, though skilled, would meet their end in brutal fashion. Mortality rates varied based on geographical location and the type of combat, but it was not uncommon for a gladiator to endure multiple fights within a year, with injuries compounding over time. In this light, the psychological ramifications of dressing for battle became apparent. Correspondences from various ancient authors reveal that donning the heavy armor triggered an emotional response. Gladiators prepared themselves as warriors, engaging in mental fortitude to face their opponents. As their armor clanked rhythmically against their bodies, it signified both protection and a reminder of their status as undervalued combatants. The juxtaposition between the Grand Colosseum and the dreary environment of the ludus begs reflection. Gladiators entered the arena not just as combatants but as representations of the empire's complex relationship with violence. The Colosseum, completed in 80 AD under Emperor Titus, became a focal point for these events, where thousands of spectators would gather, eager for the spectacle of gladiatorial combat. In this respect, the arena served as a theatrical stage for the empire, conveying messages of power and authority. Transitioning from the psychological burdens of violence, we delve deeper into aspects of gladiatorial culture entwined with public spectacle. Archaeological discoveries reveal a plethora of artifacts that provide insights into the types of gladiators that fought and the manner in which they were portrayed in art. Mosaics unearthed from sites across Rome depict these figures in various poses of valor and might. The images often celebrate their exploits, presenting them as heroic despite the brutal nature of their existence. Public fascination with gladiators resulted in a peculiar duality. While they were indeed slaves, engaging in acts of violence for the entertainment of the masses, achievements in the arena could lead to fame and financial reward. This contradiction becomes clearer when examining inscriptions dedicated to celebrated gladiators. These inscriptions, often found engraved on tombstones, illustrate the complicated legacy of individuals who frequently oscillated between idol and outcast. The moral and ethical implications of gladiatorial games ebbed and flowed during the lifespan of the Roman Empire. Records indicate that public sentiment towards gladiatorial combat began to shift in the late 3rd century CE. Voices from early Christian writers, such as Tertullian around 197 CE, began to criticize the games, viewing them as spectacles of sin and depravity. This shift in perception marked the beginning of the eventual decline of the gladiatorial tradition as societal values transformed. However, even as views on gladiatorial combat fluctuated, the financial backing of these games remained significant. Wealthy patrons sponsored gladiatorial matches as political tools, cementing their status and influence within Roman society. The games became an arena for not just bloodshed but also power plays, as politicians sought to win favor with the populace. This privileged access to entertainment from combat significantly contributed to the broad culture of patronage that permeated Roman public life. As we reflect on the intricate relationship between capitalism and the gladiatorial system, it is crucial to recognize the functional aspects of the ludus. Gladiators served not only as warriors who fought but also as economic units that provided financial returns for their owners. Historical accounts describe the extensive betting that accompanied events, with crowd participation influencing the stakes involved. The socio-economic implications of gladiatorial contests extended beyond mere entertainment, intertwining with the very fabric of Roman commerce. In the centuries following the height of gladiatorial games, the decline of such spectacles aligned with the rise of increasing Christian influence. Byzantine literature from the 5th century onwards frequently criticized these exhibitions. Various writings emphasized the notion of the sanctity of life, countering the violent spectacles that so vividly marked earlier periods. Transitioning further into the societal responses towards gladiators, we observe the external pressures faced by this group, not solely from combat but also from shifting power structures. Archaeological evidence from noble estates reveals that the vast arrays of entertainment options available to the elite outpaced traditional gladiatorial exhibitions. The decline of the games eventually aligned with changing allegiances among higher classes, propelling gladiatorial combat into a footnote within Roman history. As we reach the latter part of the 4th century CE, the fading prominence of gladiatorial combat began to manifest more clearly. The historian Ammianus Marcellinus documented instances in which gladiatorial schools were closed, aligning with the rise of new forms of entertainment that demanded less violence and risk. This transition reflects a broader shift towards humane values as Christianity began to influence societal norms profoundly. Returning to the ludus, the daily lives of gladiators became entwined with these dramatic changes. The harshness of training remained a constant, but the outlook for many did not revolve around the arena as it once had. Accounts from later Roman writers suggest that many gladiators sought avenues for escape, forming bonds that transcended combat. This desire for change echoed the larger struggles within society as gladiators began to assert their identities apart from the confines of violent entertainment. In conclusion, the life of a gladiator serves as a powerful lens through which one can view the intricacies of Roman culture. It underscores the paradoxes of strength and servitude, idealization and marginalization, that characterized their existence. The legacy of gladiators not only reflects the echoes of past thrill but serves as harbinger of later societal transformations. Gladiators were, in the end, emblematic of an era, a brilliant but brutal age that shaped the very foundations of Rome. As we transition into a discussion on the daily life of Roman elites, we shall explore the stark contrasts in lifestyle, social status, and daily tasks that diverged fundamentally from that of gladiators. Through examining their routines, one comes to understand the complex and structured society of Rome, where individuals of rank enjoyed opulent lives contrasted against the harrowing existence of the gladiators. The life of a Roman elite was governed by structure and privilege. Rising at dawn, the wealthy often experienced a tranquility that was absent in the lives of gladiators. The sun would cast soft rays into expansive villas, illuminating frescoes of divine imagery and daily life. These elaborate designs adorned the walls and ceilings, offering an aesthetic enjoyment that reflected their elevated status. The cool marble floors contrasted sharply with the rough straw bedding of the ludus. A typical morning commenced in silence, broken only by the sounds of gentle servants moving about, fulfilling their daily tasks. As the day began, a wealthy Roman would prepare for the rigors that lay ahead. Bathing was a significant part of their morning routine. Unlike the shared troughs of gladiators, elites indulged in marble bathtubs filled with warm, perfumed water. Essentials such as olive oil and fragrant herbs were employed, and slaves would knead the oil into their skin, accentuating personal hygiene and presentation. This morning ritual served not only for cleanliness but also as a social experience, where conversation could flow freely within the private confines of the bathhouse. Following their baths, the rich would adorn themselves with finely crafted garments not available to the general populace. Elegant togas made of silk and finely woven wool would wrap around their bodies, accompanied by vibrant colors and intricate designs that signified their rank. They accessorized with rings filled with precious stones and intricately designed jewelry. This sartorial display was a crucial component of their identity within Roman society, showcasing their wealth and status. The breakfast table presented a vast array of culinary delights, but it differed vastly from the meager sustenance of gladiators. The morning meal often consisted of honeyed bread, fresh fruits such as figs, and rich cheeses. Servants, trained to engage in the delicate dance of service, would arrange the food artfully, allowing time for discussions that could range from business matters to the latest news of the day. For the elite, each meal acted as an opportunity to solidify social ties and engage in the competitions of wealth. After the breakfast was concluded, a segment of the day was often reserved for business affairs. Wealthy Romans engaged in trade and estate management, responding to the demands of their agricultural and labor investments. Correspondence would be carefully crafted, and discussions about potential partnerships or financial maneuverings occupied their thoughts. The elite frequently gathered in public forums and marketplaces, where the air was thick with bargaining debates, insinuating a dynamic mingling of sociality and economy. As midday approached, the schedule of a patrician might include various forms of entertainment and relaxation. Attending the latest philosophical debate or enjoying performances from musicians and poets entertained the elite populace. These events unfolded in grand gardens, where leisure intertwined with elements of culture and knowledge, stimulating minds while allowing for ostentatious displays of wealth. Notably, the public entertainment of the cities involved elaborate feasts that featured an astonishing range of foods. Noble Romans spared no expense, exhibiting their resources through extravagant culinary displays. Dishes of roasted game, imported delicacies, and exotic fruits captivated guests. Invitations to these feasts became coveted, establishing even further social hierarchy among the elite classes. While they feasted, their servants remained in the background, observing and witnessing the excess to which their masters indulged. In Roman society, political engagement was a crucial factor guiding lifestyle and social discourse. Elites possessed opportunities to mingle with influential figures, partake in discussions around governance, and maintain higher social standings through alliances. For elite individuals, this networking often culminated in formal gatherings or political assemblies, where strategies were laid out and personal ambitions could be discussed openly. As evening approached, the Roman elite would often attend public events. The games at the amphitheater represented an intriguing alternation in their daily schedule. These spectacles showcased the might of gladiators, a stark contrast to the lavish comfort of their lives. The cheers of the crowd exchanged energy between the arena and the audience, capturing the thrill associated with short lives and brutal fate. Some elite families even patronized particular gladiators, thereby fostering a connection to the brutality of the arena, even while they themselves enjoyed untroubled existences. Yet, at the heart of their daily experiences, there lingered a subtle awareness of the disconnection between their lavish lives and the harrowing existence of gladiators. Although entertainment served as a distraction, it could not erase the stark realities of the social hierarchy. Gladiators, mere instruments of pleasure for the elite, lived and trained for the very exhibitions that provided a temporary escape for the wealthy. It is essential to reflect on how similar routines persisted through generational patterns. This societal structure, although appearing steadfast, was not immune to the transformations occurring over centuries. Each elite citizen was not just a participant in this way of life, they were also contributors to the very foundations that upheld such excesses. The alignments they formed, the money they spent, and the stories they shared, all intertwined to produce a culture of distinction rooted in disparity. As we examine the lifestyles of the elite, it becomes evident that the dichotomy between the grandeur of their existence and the hardships faced by gladiators encapsulates the complexities of Roman society. The privileges enjoyed by the upper class were deeply intertwined with the undercurrents of violence and servitude that permeated the lives of those within the ludus. The understanding of this contrast invites a deeper consideration of how administrative power manipulated societal structures. Through careful observation and documentation, one can trace the development of unique cultural practices that emerged during this period of Roman history. As we turn our attention to the intricacies of clothing and presentation among the elite, we shall delve into material culture that defines their status and showcases societal values. The interplay of fabrics, colors, and societal expectations will offer a vivid representation of how attire served as both armor and emblem of honor among the privileged. By exploring the role of fashion in the personal identities of Roman elites, a clearer picture emerges of the roles played by status, class, and public perception in ancient Rome. The clothing worn by the Roman elite signified more than just protection from the elements, it represented power and authority. As the sun's rays filtered through the open windows of an opulent villa, the day commenced with the ritual of dressing. This was not merely a trivial task but a ritual fraught with meaning. From the cusp of daybreak to the fullness of morning, the act of adorning oneself was a performance of social expectation. Patricians would rise early, often before the first roosters crow, around 5 a.m. This timing allowed them to prepare meticulously for the day ahead. They would first remove their night garments, simple linen tunics worn for ease during sleep. The garments, though devoid of ornamentation, were crucial in maintaining comfort during the night. The elite typically wore tunics made of fine wool or linen. This fabric differed vastly from the coarse materials worn by the gladiators, such as undyed wool and rough canvas. For the elite, colors held significant meaning. The most prestigious individuals adorned themselves in togas, garments of great length and complexity. These heavy drapes were often made of the finest materials, with colors reflecting status. A toga born in the rich hues of purple, for instance, signified a role within the political elite, particularly among those in senatorial positions. This act of dressing involved several complex steps. After emerging from their chambers, they would call upon attendants to assist with their wardrobe. Substantial time was spent selecting fabrics, the luxurious touch of silks and the patterns of woven threads that had been imported from distant lands were meticulously considered. Each decision reflected not only personal tastes but social expectations. Colors would often represent one's rank within society, with certain shades reserved exclusively for the emperor and his closest. In contrast to the humble garb of gladiators, the elite flourished in their choice of attire. Silk tunics would be paired with intricately crafted sandals, often based on the craftsmanship of local artisans. They could be adorned with silver or gold accents, further emphasizing wealth and position. Gold rings or elaborate fibulae might be clasped to tunics, their gleam a visible marker of affluence. Items of personal embellishment often included intricately designed jewelry, fashioned from precious metals and adorned with gemstones. The clothing rituals did not end once donned. Grooming was of utmost importance, reflecting an elite's commitment to their presentation. A small margin of time was devoted to hair care. Men would typically wear their hair short or styled in precise cuts, while women might favor longer tresses often arranged in carefully crafted styles. The attention to grooming acted as a display of status. For the wealthy, it was crucial to maintain one's appearance to convey authority and self-respect. The scent of perfume wafted through the air, derived from essential oils and extracts of various flowers. Roman society paid significant attention to the aromas that accompanied individuals. Perfuming was common among the elite, not merely for allure but as a statement of wealth and personal care. Fine fragrances could be expensive, made from the oils of rare herbs imported from provinces across the empire. As they dressed and groomed, the patricians would gather in atriums, their most socially significant spaces. This was the heartbeat of their homes, a representation of both familial honor and social standing. Conversations would flow easily in this communal space, rich with the ambient sounds of servants bustling about. It was here that they would discuss political matters, community events, and social obligations, all whilst ensuring their respective appearances aligned with societal norms. Following their morning rituals, the elite would engage in light breakfast consumption. Plates primarily consisted of items such as bread, perhaps with honey or olives to accompany it. Wine, diluted with water, was a common choice for hydration and enjoyment, served early in the day. Meals were not grand but simple, a stark contrast to the feasting that would take place later in the day. Their breakfast, swift yet filled with purpose, would set the tone for the day. Next, they would prepare for the wider responsibilities that the day held. Attending to political matters, meeting with local magistrates, or overseeing agricultural ventures were common tasks amid their busy schedules. As they entered the public spaces of Rome, they would often encounter an array of individuals, from the skilled and favored artisans contributing to the economy to the displaced citizens begging for assistance. The visibility of the disparities between classes fell heavily upon their shoulders. While patricians strode through the bustling streets, donned in their finely stitched garments, the sight of gladiators was inescapable. The presence of armed guards reinforced the status of the elite, dictating whom they might acknowledge as they navigated through the throngs of people. Events scheduled throughout the week were no casual affairs. Gladiatorial games, held in the magnificent arenas such as the Colosseum, served as a focal point of entertainment for the patricians, where the laborious provided the fruits of their work in exchange for spectacle. In turn, gladiators prepared themselves, their bodies often scarred from previous battles, a stark reminder of their treated lives. As midday approached, preparations would be underway for afternoon festivities. While the gladiators trained relentlessly for their next exhibition, the qualities of their attire demonstrated the glaring chasm of their social realities compared to that of the elite. The market would buzz with merchants selling their wares. For the elite, these outings provided the opportunity to acquire finer pieces of jewelry, dining sets fashioned from silver, and exquisite clothing not yet worn in the public sphere. The aisles were lined with leathery scents, spices, and the chatter of citizens, all mere backdrops to the performance that society had become, dictated by fashion and class structure. The exquisite clothing worn by the elite, while reminiscent of the elegance and opulence of Rome, masked the layers of complexity beneath it. Social expectations ruled the patricians' fashion choices, deeply intertwined with their identities. Now, as clothing characters paint the stories of those who wore them, the details entwined in the garments further lead to our understanding of the wider Roman culture. In the continued examination of the feasts and entertainment that filled the lives of the wealthy, we shall soon uncover how the collisions of prosperity and poverty became apparent in the arenas of Rome, approaching the extremes of joy and tragedy within a singular event. As the sun reached its apex in the Roman sky, the narrative of life within the opulent homes of the elite continued to unfold. The air, now warm and filled with the aroma of herbs and roasting meats, signaled the time for midday feasting. Patrons would gather in elaborately decorated dining rooms, adorned with frescoes that displayed the conquests and virtues of their owners. These spaces were designed not simply for utility, but as showcases of wealth, filled with fine pottery and intricately crafted silverware. The preparation for such feasts was meticulous. Skilled chefs, often slaves themselves, toiled in the kitchen, managing shifts in rhythm to create a multitude of dishes. They roasted birds such as peacocks, seasoned with exotic spices sourced from far-flung territories within the empire, while warming bread made from the finest grain. Olive oil and honey adorned tables laden with an assortment of fruits, nuts, and cheeses, each symbolizing a bounty that was reserved for those of higher social strata. In stark contrast, the diet of the gladiators was far more austere, consisting primarily of coarse bread and occasionally supplemented by the offcuts of meat, given sparingly and only when the resources permitted. These elements highlighted the contrast between the sumptuous meals of the elite and the meager sustenance earned through survival in the ludus. As the feasting hour drew near, the elite would don ceremonial garments made of rich materials. Silks and fine wool of bright colors draped over their shoulders, each outfit carefully selected to project status and honor. These garments were more than mere clothing, they were symbols of prestige and power that separated patricians from the lower classes. The act of reclining at the triclinium, the three-sided couch arrangement where the wealthy would dine, marked the activity as nearly ceremonial in itself. Guests lay on their sides, supported by left elbows, allowing their right hands the freedom to indulge in the abundance of food presented before them. Every gesture was deliberate, eating slowly to relish the flavors and engage in conversation, where topics ranged from politics to poetry. Accounts from ancient sources reflect that gatherings often included entertainment, with musicians playing lyres or flutes. Figures like the playwright Terence and poets such as Catullus were sometimes invited to recite verses that celebrated virtues or mocked vice. These entertainers played a vital role in reinforcing the social hierarchies and values held within Roman culture. Amidst the lavishness, guests savored wine, often mixed with water and various flavorings, to enhance the drinking experience. The conversations ebbed and flowed, punctuated by the laughter of the elite, while slaves scurried around, refilling cups, tidying areas, and ensuring that each patron's desires were anticipated and met without hesitation. Yet, as much as occasions could be filled with joy, they often revealed a deeper dynamic, one that pertained to the lives of gladiators, who, by contrast, awaited their next battles in brutal anticipation. These warriors were, in a way, both revered and reviled, celebrated for their prowess yet eternally shackled by their status as slaves. Their preparation for the arena would fall far from the festive activities of those who enjoyed their victories and legacies. While the elite reveled in their feasts, many gladiators faced the prospect of engaging in the combats that entertained the masses. Each match-up in the arena could spell the difference between life and death. This was not merely a sport but a ritual echoing the ancient values of courage and endurance. The air of expectation loomed heavy, as individual gladiators underwent mental and physical conditioning under the watchful eyes of their Lanista, preparing for the fights that would be their only outlet for both freedom and fame. The competitions in these grand arenas, particularly the Colosseum, became the essence of what it meant to be a gladiator. This monumental structure, inaugurated by Emperor Vespasian in 80 CE, became synonymous with the blood-soaked history of Rome's entertainment. With a seating capacity for around 70,000 to 80,000 spectators, the arena served as a grand stage for gladiators and wild beasts alike. Its very architecture was a reflection of the power dynamics within Roman society, from the placement of seats to the grandiose displays hosted within the venue. Archaeologists have unearthed evidence pointing towards the operational intensity of this grand spectacle. In 1998, excavations led by the Archaeological Superintendency of Rome revealed a series of tunnels beneath the Colosseum. These served as passageways for gladiators and animals, allowing them clandestine access into the arena, emphasizing the overwhelming orchestration of these violent displays. Records indicate that each gladiator was trained not only to wield weapons but to engage with the audience, learning to play the role of both the hero and the villain in turn. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, the after-effects of the feasts began to settle into the minds of the elite. They exchanged opinions regarding the efficacy of their gladiators, weighing their strengths and weaknesses against the backdrop of societal expectations. This constant competition for glory among gladiators elevated them to a dual-sphere status, both as entertainers and objects to be managed. Following the extravagant midday meals, many elite Roman citizens would venture into the countryside. They sought the enjoyment of verdant landscapes and nature's splendor in their villa estates, luxuriating in leisure or stoic contemplation. Dialogues among friends flourished against this backdrop, while the sense of freshly tilled earth surrounded them, lingering in the air like whispered tales of philosophical thought. These excursions allowed elite Romans time away from the rigid structures of city life, aided in their lavish indulgences. Their lives were meticulously curated, revealing a microcosm of society steeped in wealth, art, and philosophical inquiry. The BU relationships they nurtured often found solace within the pursuits of knowledge, debates, and well-curated discussions of politics. In stark juxtaposition to these moments of leisure, the lives of gladiators unfolded in training camps. They were often shackled not only in their bodies but in their minds, as the prospect of death loomed large with each passing fight. The arena's cheers were distant echoes of hope and despair, resounding through the walls of the ludus where they labored day in and day out. Some might catch glimpses of celebrations from afar but could never partake in any form of true revelry. With the relentless routine marking the borders of their lives, the thought of achieving freedom became a haunting specter. Historical records document that some gladiators could gain their freedom through valor or even garnering the favor of the crowds. This unlikely reality birthed tales of glory, impressing upon them an ambition that could either elevate them or lead to their downfall. As the evening sun illuminated the last remnants of the day, elite gatherings often transitioned into further entertainment. Performance art would fill the spaces conducted by city artists, or even skilled gladiators hired to display their prowess in informal exhibitions. The line between admiration and disdain often blurred in these moments, where one could find both admiration and fear for those tasked with instilling popular excitement. drawing the narrative closer to the core of social practices. The banquet experience encapsulated the broader essentials of what defined Roman life. Dinners served not merely as occasions of gastronomical delight but as arenas for retaining power, social standing, and breeding influence among peers. Thus, we observe how the delicate balance of sustenance shaped the societal norms of Rome, revealing a narrative that intertwined between pleasure and duty. The elaborate feast showcased through contrasts drew attention to the interdependence of both the elite and their entertainers, the gladiators. Bearing witness to these intertwined realities, we shift our focus. Now, we shall explore the captivating world of entertainment that thrived within the arenas, punctuated by the visceral experiences that defined the lives of gladiators and the responses from both the populace and those in power. Political power in ancient Rome was often intertwined with the spectacle of the gladiatorial games. Prominent political figures understood the potential of these displays as tools to engage the masses. In 80 AD, the Colosseum was inaugurated by Emperor Titus, marking the beginning of a new era for public entertainment. The games hosted in this grand amphitheater were not merely for amusement, they served to bolster the image of the ruling class. As hundreds of thousands gathered to witness these events, the grandeur of the spectacles reflected directly on the political elite. They reveled in the fervor of the crowds, who cheered and roared amidst the clash of steel, the growls of wild beasts, and the showmanship of the combatants. This public display, staged under the watchful eyes of emperors, senators, and wealthy patrons, was essential in maintaining their status. Each event was a carnival of blood and zeal, igniting passionate emotions among people. As gladiators prepared for their battles, they were aware of their roles as both entertainers and pawns in a far grander game. Their bravado and skill could elevate them to fame, while simultaneously showcasing the might of their sponsors. The annual games were calibrated to enhance political agendas and shore up popular support. This alignment with power dynamics did not absolve gladiators from their subjugation but rather embedded them deeper in the socio-political fabric of Rome. The duality of admiration and exploitation characterized the life of a gladiator. Each battle fought was a gamble against the cruelty of fate, for survival hinged on strength, skill, and often, the fickle favor of the audience. Records from ancient sources such as Suetonius and Tacitus provide insights into this complex relationship, articulating distant echoes of gladiators who became the favored entertainers of the elite. These records detail instances where certain gladiators achieved celebrity, eliciting responses from the populace that elevated them above their peers. For instance, in 70 BC, a gladiator named Priscus became the first known winner of a bout in the newly constructed Pompeii's theatre. His prowess granted him notoriety, but this did not shelter him from the pathos of mortal combat. Surviving and thriving under the flashing lights of fame, Priscus still faced the ceaseless cycle of training and fighting, relegating him to the realm of the loosely defined freedom of entertainment. As gladiators became aware of their potential to sway public opinion, many endeavored to align themselves with powerful patrons. This type of favoritism dictated their prospects and could lead them towards an important but often fleeting status. It was documented that specific gladiators showed extraordinary skill and defiance, capturing headlines that resonated even within the halls of power. Their victories and defeats were chronicled in public monuments and poetry, influencing popular culture, but underneath it all, they remained trapped in a system that sought to control them. An interesting contrast can be drawn when examining the wealth of the elite alongside the existence of gladiators. Roman patricians feasted on extravagant spreads of food and wine, serving delicacies such as stuffed dormice and roast peacock, while gladiators only dreamt of a hearty meal after a grueling day. Elite banquets were events of sophisticated rituals, with courses presented by slaves. The ambience was laden with the scents of spices, fine wines, and perfumes, elevating the experiences of the upper class to heights unattainable for gladiators, who, after their exhausting fights, consumed far more humble fare. Yet, even the most skilled gladiators longed for the patronage and financial support offered by these elites. The political machinations surrounding gladiators are best highlighted through the accounts of individual sponsors who relied on popular figures to garner support for their own agendas. Records indicate that prominent politicians hosted games to win the citizens' favor, employing gladiators to fight within their circles. This cycle became increasingly pronounced during the late Republic as rivals competed strategically for loyalty among the populace, leading to a constant reshaping of alliances. While the masses cheered for their heroes in the arena, the repercussions of these gladiatorial contests rippled through society. Gladiators' viability as symbols of strength made them compelling attractions for emperors wishing to demonstrate their own power. Yet, such portrayals were double-edged swords, and the narrative of valor could quickly shift as losses were borne by athletic bodies clad in armor. Historical accounts detail lavish celebrations that surrounded some of the most notable contests. Gladiators would engage in puns and competition for the favor of the crowd, often shifting their personas based on the expectations allocated to them. Coins minted during this time depicted famous gladiators, and the resulting images acted as tangible symbols of idolatry, capturing the imaginations of Rome's citizens. Such emblems of reverence underscored a stark contrast. The statues on pedestals represented immortal fame while the actual gladiators themselves struggled against the conditions of their existence. Now, we turn our attention to the financial ramifications of this entertainment. Gladiators were intricately tied to the economy of the Roman state. Potential patrons were compelled to fund games that not only involved purchasing high-quality fighters but also corroborated the extensive logistics of managing events. This economic entanglement ensured that gladiatorial games had far-reaching implications. The gladiatorial economy was more than simply monetary transactions. It encompassed sponsorships, betting, and the establishment of a culture around combat. Wealthy senators and social elites often placed wagers on their favored gladiators, further complicating the relationships between gladiators and their sponsors. Some gladiators, such as Crixus and Spartacus, became symbols of resistance and pride, inspiring large bets of loyalty even in combat situations, while others faced the scars and bruises of entertaining masses who cared little for their humanity. As the pattern of economy and entertainment solidified, gladiators found themselves profoundly entwined in the political history of Rome. Their fates were dictated by the desires of elites who used their lives for personal gain, further obscuring the line between heroic reverence and the reality of enslavement. The juxtaposition of life in the arena against the elite's opulence painted a vivid picture of a society enamored with blood sport, yet burdened by the consequences of its own indulgence. As we conclude the exploration of the gladiators betwixt existence, it becomes evident that this entity lived within the spectacle of combat that stood as a pillar of Roman culture. Their relentless struggle, exhilaration, and ultimately subdued existence reiterated the societal structures that upheld the grandeur of Rome. Tensions between the gladiators' mortality and the lavish excesses enjoyed by the elite constantly ebbed and flowed, emphasizing the repressed realities of those who fought to survive yet longed for freedom. In this manner, the life of a gladiator serves not simply as a tale of physical contest, but as a representation of the deeper dynamics of social and political relationships in Roman society. We now find ourselves on the cusp of understanding how the legacy of gladiatorial life transcended mere entertainment. Let us now delve into the intricacies of the social hierarchies that validated or vilified these warriors within their intricate narratives. The transition from life in the arena to understanding the broader spectrum of elite interactions highlights the extent of their exploitation, revealing paradoxes woven into the fabric of Roman cultural life. The dynamics of Roman society, particularly concerning the gladiators, reflect a compelling interplay between power and subjugation. As we analyze the social hierarchy of ancient Rome, we observe the stark contrasts drawn between the lives of gladiators and those of the elite. Gladiators were often viewed through the lens of spectacle, existing within a complex network of relationships that governed their freedom, fame, and, ultimately, their fates. Gladiators found themselves in a unique position. They were slaves, their lives bound to the will of their masters and the expectations of the crowds. Yet, Paradoxically, they could attain a form of fame that few could achieve. In the grand arenas, they became the stars of their own tragic narratives. Their names echoed through the stands of the Colosseum, where thousands gathered to witness their struggles. The aficionados of the games had a morbid fascination with these warriors, and gladiators could sometimes find favor with patrons who recognized their unique blend of valor and enslavement. The social standing of gladiators was largely contingent upon their prowess in combat. Records, including those from the ancient historian Suetonius, indicate that successful gladiators could gain considerable wealth and adoration, yet their status remained that of a slave. They could secure gifts, win monetary rewards, and, in some cases, achieve their freedom upon noteworthy victories. The nuances of this duality did not escape the notice of the elite. Political figures, including emperors, would often leverage the fame of gladiators to bolster their own popularity. Notable emperors, such as Julius Caesar, used gladiatorial games to curry favor with the populace. They would organize grand spectacles, featuring the finest gladiators, to distract the common people. Such events served as a demonstration of power and control, all while highlighting the fragility of the gladiator's existence. Marriage and familial connections further complicated the lives of gladiators. Roman law and societal views often viewed gladiators as unfit for legitimate partnerships. Those few who did manage to forge relationships were often forced to keep them clandestine due to the stigma attached to their professions. According to inscriptions found in Pompeii, dedicated to specific gladiators, some did find love. However, it was a dangerous and often heartbreaking affair. Relationships within this social class were fraught with the fear of loss, as many companions fell in the arena, leaving their partners to grieve the loss within the confines of their own chains. The scent of blood and sweat permeated the air of the amphitheater, creating a visceral reality for those who fought. As events unfolded in the arena, the outcomes directly impacted the social fabric of Rome. Gladiatorial games served not merely as entertainment, they reinforced the very structures that defined Roman identity. Death and brutality were consumable commodities, allowing the elite a reprieve from their own existential fears while serving to cement their societal status within the hierarchy. The celebration of victory came with its own price, often leaving gladiators disillusioned about their lives. Each meaningful victory in the arena was coupled with the constant specter of death. They lived each moment under the dread that their next battle may be their last. The practice of providing rewards for triumph often paled against the reality of their day-to-day existence. They fought for a chance at survival amidst lavish feasts held by those seated high above them in the stands, where wine flowed freely and laughter echoed. Comparisons to the daily lives of the elite reveal a stark contrast. While gladiators endured grueling training routines under the strict supervision of their lanistae, the elite enjoyed leisurely mornings, often engaging in discussions about philosophy, politics, and the arts. The contrast was akin to that between an athlete and a spectator, one grounded in physical struggle, the other cushioned by comfort and privilege. For instance, the elite frequented the pursuits of hunting or adorned themselves in elaborate gatherings where poets recited verses, charmed by their own social status, oblivious to the struggles below. In parallel with their privileged counterparts, the elite also maintained their opulent spaces. Detailed inspections of the villas of wealthy Romans reveal intricately crafted mosaics depicting scenes of gladiatorial combat. These artifacts, uncovered by archaeologists at sites such as Pompeii, illustrate the prevalence of gladiatorial culture in elite documentation and ornamentation. The maintaining of such images served dual purposes, as reminders for the elite of their influence over the living and the dead, and as reinforcements of the gladiatorial spectacle as key entertainment amidst their lavish lifestyles. Furthermore, the societal implications extended beyond mere entertainment. The glorification of gladiators in art, literature, and even monumental inscriptions highlighted the duality of their existence, revered figures in the public eye but slaves in private spaces. The narrative surrounding gladiators became a testament to both the human spirit and the brutality of Roman society. The gladiators' struggles echoed throughout literary works of the time, reflecting how these warriors navigated their harsh realities. As the twilight of the empire approached, the perceptions of gladiators and their place in society began to shift. The rise of Christianity introduced new values, leading to a re-evaluation of the public spectacles that were once so celebrated. The elite faced growing scrutiny regarding the moral ramifications of sponsoring games that glorified violence and death. Societies began to falter under the weight of their contradictions. In turn, the gladiator's status evolved, as the games became less frequent, and in some cases, entirely dismissed as the empire's values shifted. By the late 3rd century, references to gladiatorial combat began to wane, as societal norms adapted to a new moral landscape. Gladiators who had once been celebrated figures were increasingly viewed through a lens of remorse, as the blood-soaked arenas became symbols of an empire in moral decline. The legacy of gladiators, marked by a precarious whirlwind of fame and exploitation, left a profound impact on social and cultural narratives. They prompted reflections on power dynamics and societal values that resonate even today. The fascination with their lives remains evident in various forms of modern media, a reminder of the complexities inherent in the spectacle of combat and the lives behind the masks of heroes and victims. We now transition into an exploration of the echoes of gladiatorial culture in later societies, tracing its reflections through time and how remnants of this ancient practice continue to shape narratives in contemporary contexts.